joining us tonight. So with that, I think we will begin and move on. First order of business is minutes approval from the meeting of June 12th. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes? Are there any additions or changes? And I'm going to move June 12th, 2023. Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Next on the agenda is a series of 3 written decisions. The first is a written decision in the Historic District for 783 Hill Street for the demolition of 2 of the 3 existing structures on that property. Has everyone had a chance to read the Are there any questions? Okay. That I'm going to move we accept the written decision for 7083 Hill Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next on the agenda is a written decision for Palo Verde LLC at 10 Windmill Lane for exterior alterations. Did you all have a chance to read the written decision? Any changes?
Nope.
Any questions? Then I'm going to move we accept the written decision for 10 Windmill Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Third up is a written decision for 292 First Neck Lane to construct a first and second floor addition. Did everyone have a chance to read the decision? Any changes or questions?
Nope.
Okay, then I'm going to move we accept the written decision for 292 First Neck Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Um,
Someone for a copy of the first and third decisions, Woodhill and McFadden.
Great.
Thanks. Have a nice evening.
Okay.
Good night, John. Next up, we have a series of adjourn requests tonight, so I'm just going to list them all together. We have adjourn requests for 1280 Meadow Lane to adjourn to July the 10th. An adjournment request for Pond Lane Capital LLC at 200 Pond Lane to adjourn to July 10th. And an adjournment request for 127 Moses Lane for a driveway gate that says applicant requests an adjournment. I'm going to move that we move that, adjourn it to July 10th. We also have an adjournment request for 39, but we have to take jurisdiction of that in order to move it.
Oh, you're correct. Sorry about
So I'm going to move on 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to move on 1, 2, and 3 that we accept the applicant's request for an adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. So that takes us to public hearings for landmark designation review. There are none. We have no demolition evaluations here tonight, although we'll have one further down the agenda. So first up under public hearing historic is Flux Vest LLC at 200 First Neck Lane for a 2-car garage. Are you here? Please come on up. Please come on up and introduce yourself.
Jose Jimenez for
Yes.
the homeowner.
Great.
We also needed photographs of the existing building. We're proposing a 2-car garage. Matches the existing pool house, there's next to it. Same type of finish, the trim details, same color, same lighting fixtures. Any questions?
Okay. Do you have a site plan that shows location?
I don't have a survey, but you should have a survey on file that shows the location.
Okay, I believe we do. As a matter of fact, I have it pulled up. We do. Okay. Okay, while we wait for Jeff. Checking your filing skills, Jeff.
There you go, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So make sure we have it in the file, so the file's complete. I'm sure it's in the electronic file, but I just want to see it. I'm sorry, Debbie? Hensely does so. Look at you, looking at the back of my stack. Thank you. Okay. Great. Let me see it.
Okay, so this is,
This one's superseded.
okay,
No, this is from your file. That's the same one, I think.
same one?
Yeah, there was a superseded one in the file.
Okay. So the garage is, oh, I see, okay. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, board members, questions?
No, the design seems compatible to the existing structure. The location seems to be well sited and within the code, so.
Great.
Okay by me.
John?
No question.
James?
I would definitely agree.
Okay. Do I have any comments from the public? Okay, and I agree. So I'm going to move that we move to written decision, the application for 200 First Deck Lane for a two-car garage. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda, 200 Cooper's Neck Lane for modification of existing approval for the demolition of existing garage, et cetera. So please introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Yi Huang with Kligerman Architecture and Design. Let me just load up my screen here. Oh, yeah, and I'm here with Melissa Dedovich, our expediter, and Joel Snodgrass, our historian.
Okay.
Let me share my screen. Hello, members of the board. Oh, sorry, are you guys ready?
No, go ahead.
I believe last time we were in front of you guys, there were the 3 items of concern remaining on our project. So hopefully I can help you guys resolve those today.
Great.
So let me start out with the conservatory. If you move over to the east and west elevations, you'll see that we have removed the skylights as requested. So
you.
it will just be a standing seam copper roof. My screen's bugging out.
Spark arresters and chimneys.
Correct. And then adjacent to that, if you move to the south elevation, it was requested that the pedimented portico was also removed. So as you can see from that elevation, that is also removed from our structure.
Okay.
And then lastly, the
So, when you so just to be clear, when you say it's being removed, you're actually reverting back to the previously
Correct.
approved plan.
reverting back with the fenestration that's currently there.
Great, thank you.
And then lastly, well, to be clear, currently there is a Dutch door with 2 side lights proposed in that location. We were hoping we would be able to keep that orientation of fenestration there. The previously approved application had a French door.
Okay, so do we have, can you show me an elevation?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's let you go through this page by page, okay?
Sure.
Okay.
And then lastly, we had the brick chimneys in the house. We have removed the copper spark arresters on the 3 chimneys in the main core of the house, and we have replaced them with a lock top damper, which was suggested to us in the previous hearing. And then there is the 1 chimney on the non-historic section of the house. That one is actually being used as an HVAC exhaust flue. So we spoke to tenant at the building department, and with our builders, it was suggested to us that we should have some kind of permanent rain cap on that chimney. So what we've done is we have redesigned the copper spark arrestor with a lower profile cap. And we have more copper screening on it. So hopefully this is a very kind of unobtrusive redesign for that 1 chimney.
Okay.
But the rest will have the lock top chimney damper. And I believe that is the 3 items.
Okay, can you just show me the elevation of the doors in question?
Yes. So up top here,
You're on page,
it is page 4.
Yep. Okay,
So that shows the French doors in that location.
okay,
And what we're proposing now is we have removed that that portico, but we've just left the door and the 2 side lights in place.
okay.
Oops, and that's everything?
Yes.
Okay. Board members?
Thank you for making the changes. The only question I have, or concern I have, is the installation of what looks like either a stainless steel or, I don't know,
The
steel.
copper?
I'm sorry?
The spark arrestor? Or
On the atrium, whatever you want to call it, solarium, the connector.
Oh.
You're using a seamed,
standing seam copper.
right.
Correct.
And why would you do that rather than match the existing roof tiles or treatment?
The standing seam copper was part of our original application, so that was actually approved previously.
Okay.
And prior to this, that roof was a flat roof with a EPDM top, so
Okay.
we felt that this was inappropriate.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Jane?
No, it sounds like everything's in order.
Okay, John?
Looks fine to me.
Okay. I too say, first of all, thank you. Thank you for listening and coming back and hearing our comments and reacting to them. The spark arresters work well. I can guarantee that because I have them in my house. Do I have any questions, comments from the public? No hands? All right. So it seems to me you've come back, done everything we've asked for, so I'm going to move that we move to written decision to the approval for the modification and demolition of 92 Cooper's Neck Lane, not demolition, but for the modification of 92 Cooper's Neck Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank
Great,
you.
thank you so much.
Okay, so that leads us next to 385 South Main Street for modification of an existing dormer to add a balcony.
Good evening. I have some material present a option to the continued discussion about the
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Perry Guillot, a landscape architect. I'm part of the team that's working here at the 385 South Main Street project. I've been privy to the discussion with the board and the design team and the review of the case for a lighter shade representation impression of the house. I was here 2 weeks ago and heard all the thoughtful comments from both sides. As the landscape architect, I've had impressions of the site from day one, walking the site with my client, and I'm just gonna make a short case for a rationale for a lighter impression. The first sheet is the site plan, and I've indicated the evergreen material that's existing and proposed. There's a circle and a plus. And I'll just say briefly that the impression of this site, I think one would have in this location here in the village at the intersection of Gin Lane and South Main Street. And you think almost if you would describe this to someone who didn't know the village, you'd say that if you put a pin here, this is sort of ground zero of the impression that you would get of Southampton. It's very trim privet hedges from the public vantage. The lines of plane trees, which are the classic tree that's not shady and allows the privet to still grow. A beautifully classical proportioned gate with brick chimneys. All of that tells you the story of the hallmarks of Southampton Village. But as you go in the gate, and this location, you're prepared to be you're a stone's throw from the ocean, one house away from all three sides. And it's a very different story. It's a story of a very mature landscape, which completely belies its location. And the dominant planting is these specimen evergreens. And a quick review of just entering the property there. There's glorious American hollies and cedar trees and globe yews and masses of rhododendron. And then on top of that, the pictures I've brought to you today is even in the winter, but you can imagine the deciduous trees here when you have in full leaf. And they're gorgeous specimens of plane trees all around the property. And that lush sort of park landscape informed the evolution of the house. By chance, my client has the property next door. And some of the burdens from the typical project, garages, gates, fences, pool enclosures, the kind of items that anchor a project and give it a front and a back and two sides, isn't the case here. So the building is sort of this object in this lush, lush park landscape. And you see it from 360-degree perspective. And that's how I've approached this. There's so much wonderful existing vegetation. My job has been to carefully not change that so much. It's a rather large house, but its impression on the site is from a shady park perspective. It's not the beach house that all the neighbors have. And it's a powerful thing, and it makes it a special, to me. It's never happened before with that address. Anywhere down Gin Lane, you don't go in a gate and think you're in the context of a landscape such as this. So I think that speaks to a case to consider a lighter impression of the building and its shingle. And if it's the natural, and I've been privy to your board's discussion from day one about this. I've always imagined that the house would be this object in the landscape that would sparkle as you come in the driveway, imagining the gate opening and the curve of that gentle driveway. The broad portion of the house is not what you see first. That exposes itself to the south, and it's never full sun. It's dampened light comes through there. The house doesn't have sunshine on it until midday, and sometimes a little, after 1 o'clock. So the point I'm making is, I think the special nature of the existing conditions of that property that I have no desire to change, and let this be this sort of whiplash of landscape identity, that the lighter impression of the house would at the end of the day become the link that marries the shaded site to the identifying character of its site, being a block from the Atlantic Ocean. And we've made points about the neighbors' houses being white. I don't think it has anything. There's a way to you looking at it like that. I mean, it's not a surprise to think of a white house at that address. But I think the lighter impression will provide the sparkle in the context of this lush, lush, dark green landscape. And that's the perspective
Okay,
I want
thank
to
you.
give you tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board members.
Okay, as you know, the board takes into its consideration a number of items defined in the code, one of which is color. And then there are others in terms of mass, style, scale, and so on. So when this application first came to us, all of those things were taken into consideration after multiple visits. And the house was approved with the natural shingle. Had you come in here, or should you now ask for a white house, well, then I would say then I'd have to look at everything else with a different set of eyes, which would mean I would look at a different design. The other houses in the village and in the environs that you listed are very different houses. And I dare say no house is identical, even if it was on the same acreage or even in the same neighborhood, exactly the same. Many of the houses you presented are older, centuries old in some cases, have a lot more verticality, a lot different fenestration. So we look at everything in its totality, in its gestalt. And in viewing that, and as you said, this is at a locus that is critical or very important in Southampton. So your very same eloquent words are the very same reasons that this board member would like to see you stick with the original approval. Should your client demand a White House, then please come back to us with a different design. But if you want this house with this design as was approved, then I'm asking my fellow board members, and I'm asking that your client consider keeping it as was originally approved.
Okay, John?
You make a really good case about the landscape, the special nature of the property itself. And in agreeing with Jeff, I think that the white house actually detracts from the special nature. Instead of the house receding into the environment, it sticks out like a sore thumb now, to me. Not like a sore thumb, bad choice of words. It's much more prominent than it would otherwise be. And for me, that's a major consideration for this particular property and for the entire landscape as it was originally proposed. So I would have to agree.
No, let us speak.
Sure.
I want to add one more thing. We view each house within its environs, its location, its reference and in context to the others. Now, this was proposed to us initially as two co-joined properties that had a relationship. So that relationship was important in the consideration. They were two separate properties, I will grant you that. So from a legal perspective, the two separate applications. But your client asked us to consider those things. And so when I look at all the houses, and it's not just 365 South Main, but it's all the other houses. And as you said, in that location, I think what's harmonious and what's true to the history, and I dare say, if not I dare say, but perhaps you, your applicant, and your attorneys should look at some of the guidelines here in terms of the treatment of siding and colors. I think you might choose to agree with me, but I think my other board members do. So Jane?
Jane?
Yeah, I would concur that the natural cedar shake is a much more appropriate facade for this house, rather than being white in the sea of green with all the foliage.
I tend to agree with the board members. I think having a recessive house in that beautiful garden versus the White House that's so prominent works better, and it works better with this architecture. But at any rate, it's clear to me you don't have the votes you would need in a White House. But before we go there, let me see if I have any comments from the public.
Can I ask, were the documents on the table submitted to the file?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
No public comment? So I believe that's where we are. I think we do take in, color is one of the considerations we have as a board, and it's fairly clear that there's not board support for this architecture on this house in this location in white versus the originally approved shingle-style house. So the question really comes down to, is your client willing to make it a shingle house, or do you want to ask for a vote, or what would you like to do?
We'd like to move it to a decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All I will say in closing is that I saw the white impression always as a contrast to the landscape. I think if you have a natural shingle house, when you look at it from a landscape perspective, and the dominant way that I see this, of course, by my profession, is from a landscape perspective. And much of the debate, it's the architectural review board. It's not the landscape architectural review board.
Mm-hmm.
And it may seem like I'm coming in.
Except for landscape does fall under our purview, but go
Of course
ahead.
it does.
Yes.
But that's always my perspective. And I see that the weight of the property is this shaded experience that belies its location. And the way often in art, from my view, is to present a contrast. If you were gonna have the natural shingle, but in the context of this, as soon as you're in the gate, you'll think of something else. And I wanted to link the defining character of Southampton.
I'll be honest with you, I understand perfectly what you're doing. And I appreciate your elegant and passionate presentation of it, because I know that's what you believe.
Yeah.
But the board feels that the color of the house is not appropriate to the architecture, and we feel it's not right. And it increases the massing, and it also increases the visual weight of the house to the street when you can see it, and that's something that, as a board, you're not getting agreement on.
Yeah. I'll just
So-
offer in closing is
Yeah.
that the house is more of an object, as I tried to describe in this particular instance, that it's not burdened by the usual suburban kind of weighted items that call out a house in a different way.
Okay.
There's no appendage of garage, of a three-car garage.
I
There's
hear
not
you.
fences and gates and
Okay.
closures and
I
pool
well, I
fences.
think you
and-
know what the answer is. So
and-
what you would like is for us to go to a vote.
Please.
Okay? So on the matter of 385 South Main for the modification of an existing dormer to add a balcony and to change the color. Well, here's the problem. How do we deal with this? Because we have approved the balcony, but not the color.
You can bifurcate it. You can approve one and deny
Thanks.
another.
In one motion? In one motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So I move. Should I say it because you're voting? Okay.
Close for written decision.
I move to close the written decision, the approval of the garage and balcony, the dormer and balcony addition for 385 South Main, and to disapprove the change of color from natural shingle to white.
Perfect.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Great.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. There's not agreement here for you. All right. So that takes us up to, the next two have already been adjourned, to Martin Siegel, 104 Post Crossing for landscape and masonry.
So, in the packet that you have.
Yep.
We put in the, oh, sorry.
Yes.
Didn't realize the mic was there, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Tish.
Tish Rehill for Martin and Kristen Segal. So you have the copy that was submitted to the board on 11/8/2022, which is what you requested last time, Mark.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. Okay.
Do you want to start with that, or just use that as reference?
Use that as reference and take us through where you are.
Okay, so the newest one that you have before you, you can see the changes that have been made with the driveway. When you first come in the south entrance, you no longer have that little slot to the side. That was removed. Sorry, that was removed. And we reduced the setback in where the parking was up against the side of the house. We reduced that. We changed slightly along the facade of the house from in the carport towards where that car is parked now. We changed that slightly so that it's not so round, it's easier to get around, to come in and to also back in. Then the hedging that's coming down the south side has been changed from arborvitae to osmanthus. So that will run from the birch tree to the corner, and from the corner down to the street. It also is a proposed patio, that's what's on here now, for to be able to do just a grill, like a portable grill, and to have a table and chairs, because it's not, there's no room for it to do it around the pool area, and they just want to have a place to eat outside. If you come around that side, you have the hedge line that runs perpendicular to the terrace. that then has a double wide gate. We showed it originally with only a single wide, but we need to have a double wide to get a lawn mower in to do that area. It's too tight to come around the other side with the existing London plane tree and the tightness of the terrace. The front, there is a archway, an arched, arbor with a 4-foot gate, which I have included specs and everything in
Yep.
your lookbook.
You did.
Okay, and then there is privet that's proposed to go along the driveway exiting to the north. And I think that was the only changes. The only thing that we did remove already were the idea of having 4 posts, 2 at each of the openings. We removed that from
Yep.
last time.
And we'd also
I
talked about
think
the
that-
stockade fence between the privet lines.
Right, which, that was approved on the approved plan, but we removed it. It's no
It-
longer in this plan.
Oh, it's in the one that I have
It's in
dated
the
June
one I-
22nd.
It's in the one I have as well.
Sorry. Oh, there, sorry, there's 622. Hang on one sec.
Do you have a note? Your
I'm
note,
just trying to see. All privet.
your plans?
Oh, here, wait.
Your
Here it is. That's been changed. We took it out. This
Okay.
plan that I have, I don't know, can you see it?
Yeah,
Let me move it
well,
over so you
first of
can
all,
see it
you need
better.
to, thank you, but if you can turn around to aim it at us, it
Oh,
won't be upside
sure,
down on
sure.
camera. The,
You don't want to read upside down, Mark, sorry.
there are skills we don't have.
Okay,
Um,
we have taken it out.
Okay,
It says
thank
it
you.
right here.
Okay,
Okay, it was in this one, not in the 11.8 one, and then this was another one, which is just the Reno, but we removed it from last time. So that's
Okay.
no longer there.
okay. So the plan that you're showing us actually doesn't match the plans that we had in our packets.
This one, Mark, we just had it taken out only on this end. And the only thing, yeah, that's the only thing that's different is that the wording on here, that's different.
That's infective. Okay,
We removed it, it was taken out. We agreed with that last time
okay.
we were here.
All right, board members.
Is there stockade fencing on the west side?
There's no stockade fencing at all.
Because it looks like it looks like it's drawn in, because I see posts.
So her drawing is different
Her
than
drawing's
what we
different
have.
than the one we have.
Well, just in the sense the stockade fence was removed.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that's this one here. So the stockade fence was never along the side that I can, no, one second.
No, on the
No,
drawing,
it was never on that. It was
on the
only
drawing on the table is
It was
stockade.
only on the street side,
the
on
sto-
the corner, but it's been removed.
there's no stockade facing Post Crossing or Elm Street.
No stockade facing
So the
posts
posts are
or
gone.
elm.
So we're,
so
there-
is that what's in the file, or that's gonna have to be stamped?
That's we're
You
gonna
can-
have,
You're gonna have to stamp this, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I don't know why Marley didn't remove it out of it, but I'm sorry about that, when it was put in. He was actually away on a trip to Ireland for a wedding, so I can't change it on the computer, so.
Okay,
But this is the one that we are presenting now with the stockade fence removed.
okay.
Will not be in there.
as long as the stockade fence
The stockade fence has
is
been
removed from all
moved.
street-facing,
It is.
this is gonna have to go to written decision, so they'll have time to replace the proper plans.
Good.
But,
Okay.
Okay.
So, I think that the changes are for the most part okay. I'm still troubled by the taking down of the tree, which after research was in fact a violation. I'm not sure how that's going to be addressed here. I'll let the chair comment on that. But just a small comment. Words are important, and I notice in here, and this is where some of the problems began.
Uh-huh.
You reference the portico,
The
I mean,
porte cochere.
the porte cochere
Uh-huh.
as a carport.
Okay,
And I'm not, again,
Okay.
Tish, I'm not going to kill the messenger, but
Okay.
it speaks to the beginnings of the problem. Looking at an historic house
mhm,
with the contemporary eye and
Mhm.
language, a carport in the historic guidelines is defined as a modern suburban attribute. So, it's reflected here, some of the problems that we've encountered. But
well,
that's-
I apologize for that.
No, I
I mean,
think
I
I-
only reference it as a porte cochere. Unfortunately, I
it-
guess my son put carport in,
Oh,
so
okay.
I apologize for
I
that.
won't beat up on
He's
your
he's a
son.
little younger than me, so I'm gonna go with
That's the
forfeit
way,
share.
that's the way parents and children usually work, so
Yes.
that's a good thing. All right, I'll
Okay.
shut up.
No, I'm good. As long as the stockade fence is removed, I'm fine with
Yeah.
Okay, Jane?
Jane?
Yes, and I just want to, again, reiterate what Jeff had said about the tree. It just is a shame. I know this has happened in many neighborhoods where trees inadvertently get taken down, and I don't know how we can
Right.
rectify that, but I do feel.
Right. Well, it's a shame, but in this case, it's a violation.
Well,
I'll-
and again, I didn't none of us realized that, and I know it was
That's,
a
that's,
condition.
that's not,
Okay.
we'll let the
Okay.
chair address
Okay.
that.
Do you have the copies of the 2015?
Without ask.
Do you want this one at all, or do you
No.
want copies?
Here's that's the 2015 written decision.
Okay.
2015 written plan, I'd have to go
Is it- no,
back.
The,
The actual drawing?
no, is that the,
What?
is that the 2015 survey?
No,
Okay.
no, but I can get you the 2015 survey.
Do I have it in my file? Here's
Mm-hmm.
what's transpired, and this is what we have to figure out.
Okay,
This house, it's a beautiful house. It's in a difficult location, the way that it sits on its lot. And way back in because I remember this back in 2015, after the house was
Mhm.
originally renovated, it didn't have a pool. But
Right.
they came along, decided that they wanted to have a pool. And there was a lot of discussion done in 2015 about that. Included in that discussion, when you have a house that's on a corner lot, it's difficult because I've now lived on two of them.
I agree.
And one of the problems being is that what you're defining as your front yard actually faces post-crossing, because that's where the front door is.
Mhm.
But also, at the time that that pool was put in 2015, one of the requirements was additional screening at the setback level, or what appears to be the setback level, for additional screening to the street, so it would appear as a front yard. And Martyrs also did an original landscape plan, and the
Mhm.
landscape plan is actually included into the decision to approve the pool. In the Martyrs plan shows the tree.
Mhm.
So the tree and the existing tree are part of that plan. Now that tree has been removed, so it's actually a violation because the tree that was there was part of the discussion to approve the pool. So that's something we probably need to cure. And the other,
Right.
so the other thing that I find is, listen, we moved this up in the beginning because the thing I'm hating right now is having this important corner of the
Sit the
village.
way it looks.
So it's
I
turned up.
agree.
But I think what we're finding now is in the privet line that you have now going that
Mhm.
has the pool fence, the opening that heads toward
Post-crossing.
post-crossing,
Mhm.
actually now defines what is part of the front yard as backyard and space to the backyard. And that was not the intention of the approval of the pool, which is part of the 2015 decision that it was made. So I think in order to move this forward, I think
Mhm.
two things need to happen. First of all, I truly appreciate all the changes that you've made, because I think you did listen. We did a lot of research going back through the file to figure out sort of why we are where we are.
Mhm.
I think things need to happen. I feel like this privet line needs to go back to where it was. And I think they're going to have to come to a resolution of I don't expect you to find a 75-year-old tree, but I do think we're going to have to address the fact that a tree was taken down that was in fact a violation. So it's kind of up to the two of you and your client to figure out how you want to resolve those two things.
Well, we were happy, I mean, we did put a magnolia on the corner,
Okay,
trying to just, be
Right.
able to say, okay, we'll put a tree back of equal
Right.
size, here's a great space for it. The problem I have here is that, you know how big the London plane tree is.
Mhm.
You know what's planted on Post Crossing, which are two giant zelkovas.
Mhm.
Then I put another, we're not getting any screening, which is what you want from the pool, because privet is not gonna grow in a full shade environment. That was part of the reason we had the stockade fence in. So if we can not put the tree back here, you have plenty of shade here already. I mean, any of the privet that's on the street has no leaves on it. It only has leaves on the other side. And even when I put a double hedge in there, we'll have hardly any on the post-crossing side. And because the tree is now gone, we will get more light in there. That privet should be a little thicker and a little bit more vibrant, which will protect the pool from the street.
okay.
But, that's what, if we can exchange where a tree goes on the property, that would be the consideration to try and give this as much closure and privacy for the street and from the pool area. And also, because even putting another hedge back in here, it's in total shade.
Well, I'm actually suggesting you take that hedge out,
This hedge here.
yes, and
Yes.
then, and move it back to
Move
about the
it- well, that-
setback line and then
Right, and
perpendicular to
that's
the
all I'm
pool.
saying is this is now back in full shade again.
Right.
Can we change that to an evergreen hedge? Would you consider that?
The one at the 40-foot line?
If we come
if
back
it-
to in here, because it would have to be, it does return here
Yeah.
and come across somewhere in
Right.
here. What would be the setback? I'm so sorry, where would you
You're
want
on,
it
you're
to
on,
be?
you're on a 240, but probably where it was.
Okay.
On the original,
I'll look at the
in the original
survey.
Martyrs, on the
And
original
so
Martyrs plan
that
where it
would need
was.
to be- If that was an evergreen hedge, then
Mhm.
we would be able to have a little bit more privacy screening from the street and from the pool area.
And see, what we like about that is then the lawn expanse that goes across the front of Post Crossing goes back to being a front yard.
Right.
And which was the original intention.
Mhm.
But that's my thought. Board members, do you have any
We were
additional
just
comment about what
trying
we're
to
talking
give
about here?
them the idea that
No,
when
no,
you're,
I understand.
I mean, as you know, it's a very, very tight piece of property.
I understand.
just to
I
give them
understand. I
a little
completely
bit
understand
more
what the issue.
visual,
I
that's all.
understand what the issues are. I'm just
Okay.
trying to figure out what's our resolution here because I
Okay.
would like to find a way not to have this torn up for months. So, board members, any additional thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, even though the address is Post Crossing, for all intents and practical purposes, it's an Elm Street frontage. And the intent was, and if you were to look at this original landscape plan, it was to preserve that. And this house at that time was extensively restored, so your client has the advantage that a house that was let go
Right.
is now in great shape.
And
But we wanted.
they love the house. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
that's why
it's a
they bought
gorgeous
it.
house.
I understand. So at the same time, loving the house means loving the history of the house. And the history of the house has for a vast and open frontage on Elm Street. So anything that can be done to maintain what was originally and historically the nature of it and what was approved in 2015, consistent with this plan, albeit this plan did not have, did it have a pool? I don't,
Yeah, here's the
the pool over
This is the
there.
plan
Right.
for the pool.
So, anyway, to the extent that, like you said, you can't put back the tree, but maybe you can do something close to it.
Well,
Uh,
that's what
it-
we were trying to do with a magnolia towards the corner.
Well, towards the corner is not where that tree was, but anyway, maybe it'll work.
Well, that's what I'm asking the board to consider, only for the fact that, you know, I mean, you all know how big the London Plane is.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Well, the tree that was there was a multi-stem crabapple, by the way,
right.
according to this plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if it was, it hadn't been blooming in a while, but be that as it may,
Right.
I thought it was a styrax, but maybe
Right.
it was a crabapple. The London Plane, basically, you know, I mean, Martin's at this point putting in a automatic cover, just so he doesn't have to clean his pool like 4 times a week, because of the debris that comes from the London Plane.
That's wonderful. I think the idea of moving the hedge from, in perpendicular to the. or
So
per-
parallel to the pool
pool.
again.
Yeah.
And there are selections of hedges that would work in a shady area, boxwood or.
Well, that's, I
I-
mean, an evergreen hedge.
Yeah.
Can I
you'll-
finish,
oh,
please?
sorry,
My
sorry.
God.
No,
John.
I apologize.
And then if you did that, a tree could be replaced in that same spot because then it doesn't impact the ornamental border bushes that you're planting next to the pool. So it doesn't have to be privet. It could be something that tolerates a shady area. So then the tree could go back in.
Yeah, and
But again, I'm just gonna say, it is now then shading the privet,
Is-
which is, I thought, the part of it is that you wanna have enclosure on the street
Right.
side.
I think.
And that's the only problem.
Right,
It's
and I
not gonna
think
be
what
able
the
to
chair
hide
is
that.
asking you to do is to come back to us with a full-blown landscape plan, and one that takes into those considerations. We can't sit here, Tish, and design
Well,
it
what can
for
we,
you.
what can we
but
do
in
to
terms of-
appease the board today so that we can be done with this? I mean, I'm at the point now
Do
where
you-
it's like, we have to let that sit now for 2 more weeks. They
Right.
I
can't use the
understand.
property.
Right.
But
We're willing, I mean,
I
we're coming back.
understand your
and-
frustration, but it is
Yeah.
true that when someone buys a house, the prior decisions travel with that house. So if they
Agreed.
if they were not made aware or didn't choose to become aware of the prior decisions they carried with that house before changes were made, this is where we are.
I agree.
I agree with you, I'd look forward. I'm going to say,
Oh,
Well-
I thought there's the driveway, and then there's the landscaping.
well, there's a stop work order on
And-
the house right now.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to get the site cleaned up sooner rather than later, then you could do a partial approval tonight.
Okay.
Of the hard surfaces, or more or less, right?
My feeling is, because you're the landscaper, you can do this right there. If you would agree to move that
Privet line.
privet line back over to the pool.
Yes, we will.
And agree to a tree, I'm not saying what kind of tree, some kind of tree or screening to go into that lawn area, whether that's a bed or a screening, preferably a tree. If you would agree to that, then from my perspective, I think we could agree pending receipt of final plan to move
Fine.
forward, because I would like to figure out how to move forward. These people have been through a lot, and the village is going through a lot because we've got an ugly corner and a beautiful street. So,
It's certainly not doing justice to the house right now.
no, it's not, but,
And we would like to move forward. We'd like to clean it up and make
I'm
it
sure,
look
I'm sure they
presentable.
would, yeah. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If you go to an evergreen screening, I would suggest something that's in, what am I looking, germane, what's the word?
Boxwood?
No.
No?
Something that's native. No, it's not-
Indigenous.
Thank you, not arborvitae.
Well, you've eliminated arborvitae right away,
Right.
so I mean, I would rather do boxwood, like indigenous or native, there's not much that you can
Boxwood,
put in there.
Boxwood.
that-
Laurel works too.
Laurel or,
So,
I'm
just gonna
sorry,
ask-
very
Before I
ugly.
go to public comment, I'm just gonna ask this question. We can approve this for written decision pending receipt of a plan that shows, correct?
The
Okay.
changes that you want
The
made,
change
which
I'm
is the
requesting.
change
Yeah,
of
because we already have
the
to do that
privet.
anyway, because your plan
Also-
doesn't match what we have,
Right.
so.
Also, if this is indeed a violation, that this tree was cut down and a violation is issued to the property owner, they're gonna end up back before you dealing with it anyway,
Okay,
if a violation is issued.
if a violation is issued, and I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But before I move on, I do have to ask, are there any public comments?
Can I go Yahoo?
What? No, not yet. We haven't public comments yet.
I also just want to point out too that,
Hang on one sec. Yes, sir?
Okay.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Max Holmes. We're at 92 Post Crossing, so we're the immediate neighbor,
Yes, sir?
and certainly one of the people most affected by this. I'll be very brief. The first is with regard, we're opposed to a second set of hedges, right? It completely messes up what used to be the front yard, right? Which was an L shape, right? So we continue to be opposed to any kind of a second hedge or parallel hedge. I can see the plans that you're looking at, but what it creates is a sort of a fortress around the pool area, right? To work with. So we continue to be opposed.
You realize that hedge existed before. That hedge was part of the 215 decision to get the pool required that hedge.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at that. I don't-
Okay, and any other comments?
There was never a hedge there.
Well, but he may be talking about this hedge.
Good.
Are you, why don't you speak directionally in terms of a hedge that runs north, south, or east, west?
Yeah, so there's a hedge that's our property line with this house, right?
East or west?
So it would be
Are you
going-
talking about the privet that's up against your driveway?
Yeah, so that one has always been there.
Well, that's staying there. It's not
Yeah,
going anywhere.
Of course, that's totally normal, right? They have built a second hedge parallel to that hedge.
We're putting osmanthus in, yes, to give us some screening from your driveway because again, it's a very shaded location.
All right, sir, now please just direct your comments to the board. Do you have any other comments?
Yeah, my other comment is with regard to the tree, and again, we were here in 2015 with the prior approval. I don't think it's correct to chop down a heritage tree in the village and then say, well, I'll put a different tree somewhere else on my property. I don't think that's the correct remedy, right? So we think that
I don't think that's what we're
it could
suggesting.
be a 75-year-old tree, but the comparable tree can be placed where the old tree was. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments?
just confused which hedges folks were talking about.
I think he was talking about this one.
Oh, I thought I
Yeah.
was talking about this one.
No, he was talking, because this is his driveway here,
Right.
which runs all the way along that entire side. And it had a double hedge there. There was larger, very tall privet,
Yep,
and there's a shorter privet that was
Right.
installed before. And we just want to replace it with osmanthus to just give them a sense of privacy at the pool, because it is a driveway.
okay. Hello? Please introduce yourself.
You're on
I-
mute.
we cannot hear you. Are you on mute?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Hi, Susan Hopkinson, I live across the street from 104 Post Crossing. I'm grateful that you're moving the hedge back to where it originally was, because it's not authentic on the current plan. It should say move the hedge, chop down the tree. The owners were notified after they chopped down the tree that any future work required a certificate of appropriateness, and they didn't do that. So I really want the tree back. It provides screening from the shine of the pool cover. Not only that, but it was beautiful, and it was part of the history of that house. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. There's a lot of passion for that tree. Think about that.
I'm not saying a word about it.
Okay. So, that I understand where we are is you're going to come back with a plan that shows the moved hedge, your screening solution for this part of the yard.
We're going to
And-
just return the hedge back this way,
Yep,
and it will become evergreen,
Okay.
if that's okay. We will have to take it from the corner of the porch and return it back across, okay?
okay,
I mean,
yes.
because it has to, we want to have pool code compliance.
Right, because you've actually made the patio deeper than the approved plan here, so,
Mhm.
okay.
So we'll
Um,
just run it along there, bring it back, and wherever it was, we'll find out the distance from the street where it was, we will put it back.
Okay. And what about a tree or
We will-
additional planting or screening in that spot of the
Well,
yard?
again, if, I'm happy to put a tree back.
I think you should.
If you don't mind, I'll probably change it to a tree that will do better in a very shaded condition. Styraxes will do very well. It's a beautiful tree. It has white flowers. It'll do fine there. So I will find you a very nice tree, I promise,
Okay,
that will go in, that will make everyone happy.
And it will mature to the same size as the
Absolutely.
pre-existing
It's more
tree.
of a shrub tree rather than a single stalk tree. So that was a multi-trunked crabapple. So whatever we put in there will have more of that stature. It won't be a s-
Deliquescent, right? Yeah.
What, sorry?
No.
Okay. And so may I ask one thing, if this was
Sure.
possible? Is on this interior face here, could we put evergreen on the inside of the privet? So just to add more screening? Well, I guess we don't really need it. We're
no,
gonna
you
have
don't,
it
you
here.
don't need it.
So I don't need
Yeah,
it. So
don't-
we'll just do
And
privet
don't push
there.
that, we're doing well here,
Okay,
don't push that. Okay.
Just was asking, and then I realized we don't
Yeah.
need it because we're returning it
And,
this
and
way.
also your bushes facing the street with them being consistent, so,
Privet, privet,
All right.
privet, okay?
And where will the Styrex go?
The Styrex will go back where the tree was taken out.
So that
Okay.
needs to be identified then on the.
okay.
We'll
So-
do it by the plan.
So, council, stay with me on
I
this.
think
I'm
the
with you.
Stay
stump is
with
still
me,
there.
stay with me on this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to remove that we accept the applicant for 104 Post Crossing pending the receipt of updated plans that show a repositioned hedge that's perpendicular to the property, a tree placed back where the tree was removed, or is it parallel?
Parallel to the pool.
Parallel to parallel to
post
Post Crossing,
crossing,
up
thank
against
you.
the pool as per the Martyr Plan from 2015.
Mhm.
A tree put back where the tree was removed to be determined by the applicant and reviewed.
I think the stump is still
And,
there. so-
and the
It's shown
removal,
on the Martyr plan.
and the removal,
Oh, thank you.
One voice, please.
and the removal of the stockade fence
Yes.
on Post Crossing or Elm Street.
Okay, just before we do that, replacing a tree is very general. It could be a sapling. It could-
No,
it
we
could-
would, we
well,
would
it
never
could-
do
we-
that.
Well, you would never do it, but people have.
Should
We've
be a
learned never to trust
consistent,
anyone.
consistent caliper,
Okay,
and if they want
I-
their written decision adopted at the next meeting, then they'll put in a good one.
Okay, so, all right.
Okay.
So they're gonna submit
We're
a plan.
gonna have that plan before
The
the written
final
decision
plan.
is
Suggestion
adopted.
and
The
the
written
caliber.
decision is gonna reference
And the caliber
new
and the height,
plan.
and if they're
Okay,
really, if they do a
gotcha.
really good job, they'll show us a picture of it.
Okay,
Um,
I may have a photo
Okay.
of
So-
existing before.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There you go. So you will do your plan.
We will do the plan.
You will bring it back, reflecting these changes, while we do the written decision. Don't do anything until you have the written decision, because we also have to approve the written decision in the next meeting.
Okay, so we can't like start work on the driveway, putting it back,
You can't until we
Like-
start.
backfill at least soil and.
Talk to the building department.
Yes, we don't
We
have
have to
the
move
authority to
on.
lift it.
So if I go to
We don't have
Tien, he might say, sure, you
I
can
did-
do
did-
that.
We can't predict the future. Let's
Okay,
move
yep.
on, please.
Let's-
Okay,
We're gonna
sorry.
move on.
It's like
Sorry.
1,000
Have
degrees.
ample
You
time
should-
on
You should
this.
probably,
Thank you very much.
thank you. All right, so.
And I just ask, I don't need to appear for the written decision, or do I need to?
No.
Okay.
No, you don't need to. That was 92 Coopers, that's 35.
94 Post.
That's Post Crossing. That's already been adjourned. Okay, so that takes us to new matters. The first up is 94 Post Lane LLC.
Oh, right,
94
yeah,
Post
I
Lane.
know.
Post Lane.
And
did
are
the
the,
same
do you have affidavits and are they in order?
That's what I wanted to
They
know.
were
Yeah.
previously accepted and we took jurisdiction.
Okay. Hello, Rick.
Good evening, board members.
No, it's-
CMX
it's-
Sami,
say that.
architect here representing
I'm
Patricia
sorry.
Ross.
I'm gonna ask you for 15 seconds to get your
Sure.
paperwork in front of me. Because I know you sent it in. Okay, thank you.
Let me get this file.
I got
Um,
lots. Go ahead.
May I?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to briefly give you a little bit of a history of the building. Only lot on the street, Post Lane, that's part of the historic district.
Mhm.
The house was moved to this site in 1945
Mhm.
from North Main Street, the Jackson homestead. It was at the time added on to and modified. It's a 1.5 story frame gable house, central chimney. The twin gables in the front of the house and dormers in the back were added at the time in the 1945-1950 period. The house was again added on to in 2000 on the rear. 2 extensions, one on the east side, it's a screened-in porch, and one on the west side, which is a ground-level master bedroom suite, again 1 story gabled. We are in front of you tonight for 3 minor modifications, additions to this property. On the front of the house, the first addition is a 4 foot by 9.5 feet extension of the front stoop, basically enclosing it. The interior is very tight. One person can basically, when opening up the door, has to back into the staircase. So we're pushing that up 4 feet and enclosing it. Same door is going to be used on the new extension. It's a shed dormer with a lead-coated copper roofing. Same type of siding and details of the molding, which are Greek Revival, are going to be carried around this new addition. In the rear of the house, the existing screened-in porch is going to be doubled in size to a glassed enclosed porch. And also the living room is going to be added onto a 4 foot by 13 foot bay, which brings more light to the living room. Again, the house, the 2 additions, making it an H shape, is kind of dark, especially in the living room where the master wing was added onto. Hence, to bring somewhat light and exposure to the garden. The owner, Patricia Loss, is here from. She's a landscape designer. And she's worked on the landscape here extensively and continuing to. One of the things that were not part of this application, and we got permission from the village and the building department, was there is a garage in the rear of the lot, which was gravelled. The gravel in that section was removed and grassed, so that it would feel more as part of the landscape of the overall house. This courtyard that is created off of that garage, we're also proposing a 5 foot wide trellis that will be drained at the top. And the back of the garage, we're introducing sliding French doors that would open up one of the bays of the garage so that she could work on basically as a garden shed going in and out. Again, all of the additions are very modest, 1 story, and in line with the composition of the overall structure. In the rear of the lot is, of course, a free-form existing pool and a shed. Nothing's changing to that, besides the fact that, again, we removed all the hard surfacing over there and brought it back to a more natural green landscaping.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions. if you may.
Okay.
And I'll walk you.
Let me ask you this, the original structure of that house, you mentioned 1945, but
Yes.
what's the original, what's the year of the original structure?
1740.
1740. As a matter of fact, it's the oldest occupied house in the village, isn't it?
No.
Still occupied?
Oldest occupied house in the village is, again, another project I did on South Main Street, 1640 something, across from Halsey House, which is the old Daughters of the American Revolution.
So it's among the oldest houses then. As a matter of fact, it's been moved twice, hasn't it?
It's moved.
It was moved in because it was moved twice, if I remember the history. I went through the house. If I remember the history of the
Are
house.
you referring this house or
That one.
this house? From what I've read, only once, but
Okay.
only once.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, the charming thing about this house is from the front facade, and it still maintains its original character
Yes.
completely.
No, because it did not have any of the dormers on the second floor.
No, not the second floor, but the main floor does. It
The
has,
main
it had the
floor,
original
exactly.
fireplaces there,
Actually,
the
if
tile
you-
work is there, so,
Look at the ground floor plan. of
Yep.
it. It's a very simple.
It's a, yeah, it's a charming house, yeah.
Charming house, yes, and that's why Patricia purchased.
Yeah. All right, board members.
Jane or John?
I'm mostly concerned about what you're adding on to the front of the house as far as the front door. That would be my main concern. You did say you were going to do everything in kind with what is there,
Correct.
style-wise and material-wise?
Correct. The only thing that's not in kind is the roof of the structure. And we had an option of either going a flat roof EPDM or a shed roof. A shed roof is more in line with the architecture of the period, but the shed roof not having the slope that's required for shingles, we're opting for let go the copper, the roofing. But,
Okay. Jay? You here?
I just want to get a little bit more acquainted with what the
Sure.
configuration is
So-
going to look like, because I do understand it is
Sure. So let's walk.
1740 house, so,
Sure.
yeah.
I'll walk you through should I walk you through the floor plan or the elevations? Which one?
The
you
ele-
prefer?
the elevations,
Yeah.
The
please.
elevations, okay. So, page A 2.0, top is the existing and bottom is the proposed.
You're on A23?
A20.
A20.
Which is the front street elevation of the house. One of the things we also, Patricia, undertook was that there was a lot of heavy shrubbery that was basically hiding the building, and a lot of that is cleaned up and moved to the side of the property so that it would present, the house by itself presents itself much better than what when she purchased it about 6 months ago. So the only change in the front is, again, the bump out of 4 feet of the front entrance. That's the front of the house. On the second page, A2.0F, you can see the details of the same. Again, same dental moldings is going to be wrapping around it. Same shingles, which are 11.5-inch exposure with nailed in at the base because of the larger exposure at the base of this. The door is the existing door pretty much moved on to this location. The clear story window on top of the door is matching the existing. The 2 side lights on either side of the door and of course on the sides are an addition. It's a relatively, there are many typical examples of this type of addition where it's very light, an introduction of light. That room behind it, if you look at the ground floor plan, it's a
Well,
really tight space.
Let's go back, at this point, let's go back to Jane's questions.
Sure.
Okay, that definitely helps me understand it better. and it looks like you're gonna carry out brick all the way through?
Brick,
Yes.
all the foundations, all new foundations are going to be brick, matching existing brick. We actually have sourced historic brick to match that. Again, the shingles are going to be not a 5.5-inch typical exposure, but 11.25 to match the existing. All the trim, and also there are some brackets over there that are Greek Revival dentals are going to be matched.
So matching the foundation brick will extend to the porch itself, the addition of the porch, correct?
In the back too, absolutely. We're consistent with that throughout.
John?
Do you have any other?
Jane?
No, I-
Make sure.
And let me walk you
No,
further
hang on.
to the back
Jane,
of the house.
Jane, did you
maybe?
have any other questions?
Oh.
No, I understand better now how you're enclosing it. I have
Okay.
to say, originally, I thought the roof was flat. It's not flat.
No,
No,
it's not.
okay. Got it.
Okay, John?
Yes, I think the addition to the front, that little like mudroom kind of, I think that's fine. The only question I have are the windows on the sides of the extension.
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure about that, if it's just kind of too much and inconsistent with what a traditional house might have for, I'll go through all my comments and you can.
Sure.
So that's one thing that I'm just not sure about. I would normally have issue with all the new windows and the additional windows on the back of the house, but considering where the garage is positioned, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But I do have a question about the the side elevation. I wish we had cardinal points or something.
Which page are you on?
The proposed side addition elevation with all the new windows and the
Yes, that's the
sunroom?
east side.
The east side, okay. So
Yes.
on the east elevation, I need to understand how that impacts
The neighbor.
the neighbor.
Yes. So, may I?
Without discussing bushes and things, how does it set up against the house itself of the neighbors?
So neighbor's property, actually I have an existing photo of it. This is the neighbor's property. Facing, this side of it is against our property.
So they have minimal.
So they have minimal
There's minimal
shading.
exposure.
We have a stockade fence between the two of us, in addition to evergreens, mature evergreens, which are these guys. And I would like to also reference the last pages of our drawing, and Patricia is very concerned about this factor, which I think would address your concern regarding light, that there are no ceiling lights, there are no sconces. Per code, we have only one light by the door, and the only other lights are outlets that are gonna be connected to floor lamps.
Mhm.
She wants to use that more as a evening porch.
Yeah,
rather
no,
than a
it
room.
looks really nice. I have no,
Yes. So
no
we're
qualms about
very
that.
concerned, and
Just-
actually, we are in communication with our neighbors as to what's happening.
yeah,
also.
I just want to make,
So we're-
that's always a consideration of mine. And there is no, the flat roof part, that's not accessible, correct? There's no,
None of
no
the,
balcony.
none of the flat roof part of it actually is an extension. There is an railing
That's
that
what I
you see
thought,
over
okay.
there. That railing is basically only about 16 inches high. It's a decorative thing. It's not walk-on.
Yeah, so
there's no doors going to that.
So
area.
my only comment, not even a concern, is really the windows on both sides of the mudroom. Actually, from a practical standpoint, that's where that's my own house, my mudroom. That's where I have hooks and things to put coats when you're walking in. So you eliminate that
And
possibility.
Let me just, we have looked at precedents of this nature. One of the advantages of putting windows on the sides is that, again, it separates or it makes the addition more of an independent structure from the rest of the house. Once you start having solid walls coming from the two sides, it makes it more as part and parcel of the main portion of the house, whereas this becomes more of a independent, separate,
you're right.
and
That
different
makes-
scale to the main house.
Okay, so
And that was our concern, to create that distinction.
I have no other
Okay.
issues, questions.
Jeff?
Oh, okay. So my concern is the front of the house. Patricia is not new to this board in restoring houses. She's done excellent work elsewhere, and often characterized by their simplicity and elegance. In this case, and it's not that the front of the house is not simple or elegant. It's more a matter that this is a 1740 house. And the addition of a porch or portico, no matter how small, takes away from that. And let me just read to you very briefly a small piece in the architectural historic guidelines for historic areas. Porches extend, they speak about the styles, classical portico in Greek Revival and wraparounds in a Queen Anne, and it goes on. So it tends to be in a more formal house rather than a 1740 simple house. That's not to say that there aren't porches on some houses that may date of that era. It then goes on to say, the decision on how and what and to what extent to rehabilitate a porch can test the mettle of even the most devoted preservationists. In the end, decisions on the rehabilitation, removal, or addition of a porch should be based on careful historic research or determination of the house's dominant architectural style and how the porch contributes or detracts from this style. And I think in this case, and with all due respect to Patricia, that the addition takes away from that 18th century simplicity. The other elements, yes, there are a lot of windows on the rear, but they're executed very well. And so I don't know whether it's more than 50% window or not, but the execution is very, very, very top drawer. So with the exception of the front door, I'm in favor of the application.
No, because I'm not done yet. When you buy a historic house, it's the same problem that we just had at 104. When you buy a historic house, you buy it quirks and all, and you buy it for that charm. Now, this house has been around, as it looks right now, since 1740. In this location and in its previous location, and these are now historic openings. As a matter of fact, the windows in that house they're certainly not 1640, but they're old. They were nailed down at one point, which is kind of weird. Some of them were nailed shut, which is weird. But the way you walk into the house, the way the house presents to its staircase, the way it presents to the street, the way it masses to the street, I think should stay that way. I would give you no support of putting and changing the historic opening to the front of a 1740 house. I think we need to maintain the character of a house that has lived this long. As for your work in the back of the house, which is the newer sections of it, I think that work is all fine. The only thing I can't support is the change to the front of the house, the porch.
And actually, I didn't realize this was in the historic district, so
That's in the historic district.
yeah, that changes, I would agree then regarding the front of the house.
Is there any option as far as the changing of the scale of this, reducing it slightly more? And I'm telling you the reason.
I'm going to tell you no. This is a historic house in a historic district in a town we are the Board of Historic Preservation. And I think the way it presents and the simplicity of which it presents itself without that porch is actually the simplicity of how houses were in 1740, and we need to maintain that. And these are historic openings. So I wouldn't support a change to the front. I would support the changes that you're making to the back.
I mean, the reason I'm bringing this up is because we live in a village that basically its roots goes back to the colonial architecture of the time. And basically the saltbox, Halsey
Right.
House is the perfect example of it. And even including Halsey House has gone through extensive changes throughout its history. Some of it is because of the function of it. When people move in and use it for different purposes, they accommodate those needs that they have. The additions to the back of Halsey House, the additions, even this house, the second floor, for instance, was all added onto in the 1740s and 50s.
One of the principles of historic preservation, you saw it with the house that we had actually over on Elm Street. You're proposing taking historic openings, making them wider, representing them, moving the door forward. So one of the if you put a modern, like this house where you have a modern extension in the back, you could remove it and the historic structure will still be intact. When you take away the historic element of material that's to the side door, you take the doorway and move it, you can no longer go back. You cannot remove what you would do and have the original structure remain intact. Therefore, I think any change like that to the front door actually violates the spirit of historic preservation in this house. Yes. Yes. Then we'll ask for public comment.
Patricia, just.
Can you come up and introduce
step
yourself,
in.
please?
My name is Patricia Ross, and I live at 94 Post Lane. And I'm happily back in Southampton after living here for 30-plus years and running away at the beginning of the pandemic and coming back, really realizing I missed it so much. And I bought Post Lane because I could see that it needed, I thought, a landscape approach. I knew that I could not change the house, and other than having known CMEC for many years, thought that there was a way to bring some light into it. The downside of the house, for me, it's totally charming, and I think any of you would agree coming in, but it's very, very dark. And I thought by bringing, actually the inspiration for this was a house on Cobb Road. That's right across from Cobb Isle, and it's a 1700 house as well. It's been added on to a number of times, and the idea of just a simple glass, and my mudroom, by the way, is, no house can be without one. Mine's in the back, and I lost a couple of kitchen cabinets in order to create one, because that's where I come in from. But this was just meant to be a way to bring light. I believe the house was probably just the two front rooms. And the windows are very small, and I thought by extending it with a boxed window, low paneled wall, it would just allow light to flood into the front of the house, more so than it does now.
It would,
And
but that's just, in my opinion, that's just inconsistent with the history of the house. Because that's not how the house was
It
designed.
doesn't matter to you that it's been added on to since it's 1740?
Well, it does, but I
or
didn't, it bothers me the way the dormers are put on the top of it, but I wasn't here then.
Okay. It bothers me too.
Yeah,
Because I was
it bothers, I mean,
was
I've been
actually
through
trying
that
to
house,
balance it off
you
a
should know, I've been
little
through the
bit.
house extensively, so, yeah, like I understand. But where they've added the room and the light in the kitchen when you go to the left, and the way that, even down toward the master bedroom in the back, those lights, and now you've added more light living space in the back, I think that's great, makes good use of where you sit on the land, but I just could not support the change to the front, and the change to the historic openings in front of a 1740 house.
One other thing is that there are clerestory glasses on top of the existing door. Would the board consider some sort of this is a 6-panel door, maybe the upper portion of the panel could be converted to glass?
Probably not. I'd have to look at it, but probably not, because that's not how this house has presented itself since 1740.
I think it's also helpful for you and everyone else to understand that we are guided, we're directed by the code, and the code includes guidance and reference to the Secretary of Interior's standards, which include, and their mantra is very simple, and some of the folks may be able to repeat it, which is simple: retain, repair, and only then replace. So you have a 1740 house. To the extent that elements can be retained, even though other elements have been changed, our wish and really our duty and responsibility to the village is to retain as much as one can.
Okay. I bet as a landscaper, I bet you found some very interesting plantings back around that pool. Because it was really overgrown when I was there, but it looks like the foundation of that looked really wonderful back there.
It is wonderful. There was a berm
Yeah.
built around the back
Very
of the
deep one,
pool
yeah.
that was interesting, but it had been grown
Yeah,
over.
I
So
bet you
with
found,
mortars-
I bet you found wonderful things there.
Well, we found wonderful things and just moved them back further away so they'd have room to grow and breathe, and so would the pool.
Good, congratulations.
So, thank you. And
Let-
that little
yeah.
tiny shed back there is now, it was a summer kitchen. It's now been whitewashed and has some wonderful summer furniture in there, so it's going to be a
Nice.
wonderful place to live.
Do we have any public comment?
No.
No. Okay. So you understand where we're at, what would you like to do? Would you like to
May I
adjourn?
ask for a vote, and I'll, since I have to come back, basically we'll make the front entrance.
You don't want to vote, you want to adjourn and come back with a redone front entrance, because if you vote, you're going to have to renotice. You don't have the votes tonight for approval.
Not for, with the exception of the front entry?
To be really honest with you, I'm going to ask you to come back with full approved
I mean,
drawings.
we're just taking it out,
For-
we're crossing out the front.
Alice?
If he's a licensed
He's,
architect.
he
on
can,
the
he can,
plan,
he can
He
actually
is.
mark it. Okay, that's true, you can
so
mark
he
the plan.
He can
Okay.
mark it.
I can mark it out and.
What do you
basically-
say?
That, no, I think that's fair, okay. So, in which case, stay with me, Counselor.
And
I'm
then
with
that'll have to be stamped in.
I'm then going to approve the application for Post Lane LLC.
Close for written decision.
To close written decision, the application for Post Lane LLC, pending the receipt of updated drawings that show the original front entry as exists, and the proposed changes to the rear of the house as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There we go. This we can move you along.
Jackie, do you have a stamp?
I don't have a stamp, I've been handwriting it on there, so
Okay.
they'll have to stamp.
Thank you very much.
Here's the
Thank you.
file, by the way.
Okay, so that brings us to 39 Lewis Street. Do you have affidavits, and are they in order?
Yes.
No, I
Okay.
thought this was adjourned.
But we're going to take jurisdiction of it, and then we have a request from the applicant to adjourn 39 Lewis to July the 10th.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to move we accept the applicant's request for 39 Lewis to adjourn to July 10th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Which brings us next to 570 Hill Street. Francis F. Roos, do you have affidavits?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the chance of air conditioning?
I don't know. John, any luck back there with the air conditioning?
This panel doesn't work anymore.
Oh,
Anybody, anyway?
There is none.
Okay.
there's, okay.
Okay, I'll talk
Yeah.
faster. Hello, please introduce yourself.
This is like,
If I could, I would, believe me.
maybe like one of the scenes from the Scopes trial.
This sweater was a really good decision. All right.
I passed out.
Oh, no. All right, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is Heather Wright, 30 Main Street, Southampton, New York. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Vikas Keswani. He is contract vendee to purchase this property. I'm also here with Melissa Dedovich from Peconic Environmental, who submitted the application, and Joel Snodgrass from Stewart Preservation Services. I'm sure you have a copy of his report, and he can certainly answer any questions that you may have. So the property at 570 Hampton Road, it's 0.43 acres in the R4 zoning district. It is in a historic district, and it's currently improved with a one-story L-shaped ranch dwelling with an attached garage and deck. So the project is quite simple. We are proposing to demolish that structure and restore the lawn and retain the existing tree that's on the property. The client does not have any plans at this time to do any construction. Just to give you a little background, my client owns 10 Captain's Neck next door, so when this property came on the market, I always encourage clients to, if they can, purchase an adjacent property, just because then they have a little bit of control over what may or may not be constructed, and certainly prevent possibly a spec house, which is one of the things that my client would obviously be concerned about. So at this point, he has no plans for construction, but the house is a little bit deteriorating in condition. There was a squatter living in there for a little while, actually. And so just to give you a little background, the dwelling was constructed in 1964. If there was an aerial photograph included in some of the documents we submitted that showed in 63 it was vacant, 64 there was a house there. The CO for the dwelling is actually 1974. The layout of the house has not changed since that time. It is still the L-shaped floor plan. In 1986, at the time the district was formed, the National Register of Historic Places inventory indicated that this property was considered a modern residence and not contributing and not part of a specific period of significance. I mean, that's similar to 10 Captain's Neck, which is next door. That had a similarly styled home on it until a couple of years ago. It was also on that inventory as a non-contributing, more modern structure. Obviously, that property has been since renovated or improved with a new dwelling. The same thing with 22 Captain's Neck, which, although it's not a historic district, was also a new dwelling on the property. So it's right now pretty straightforward. We don't have any plans to construct, so I don't have any plans for you. But I did submit a landscaping plan, which shows that really all we're intending to do is restore the grass and maintain the tree.
That's pretty straightforward.
Landscaping plan, we're gonna plant grass and keep a tree.
I just wonder has there ever been a 1960s home worth preservation? Never mind, sorry.
I'm sure there has. We did have some pretty seminal architects in the 60s who did some work, so I'm sure there has been. The question is 60s ranch houses in the village, so because this is an expanded ranch house, 'cause I lived in one of them for a while. Okay.
So that's basically the presentation. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions, we're here to answer them. So fire away.
Okay. Board members, fire away.
No questions.
Glad it won't be built on
Yeah.
right now.
Because the house is a 1960s house, we're not required, but it's in the historic district, we're required to send it to our historic consultant.
You're not required to, and it's, if the board determines it's not a contributing resource, which it sounds like it's not, then you don't need a replacement plan either.
Okay. All right. Yes, in the historic district, we can require replacement plans before we vote on it, but you don't tend to replace it with
We have
anything.
a new
But it's
code,
also
yeah,
not
so-
it's also not a contributing structure.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah,
do you have any
it's-
public comment?
Oh my God, I'm about to pass out.
I know, really. All right, so actually, under these circumstances, you have anything to add? I'm gonna move to written decision, the demolition permit for 570 Hill Street, because in driving by the house and from what I've seen, and it's a 60s house, it's not a contributing structure. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I hope you survive the rest of
Great
the night.
presentation. I've never seen so much detail on that.
Do those windows open over there? All right, so that takes us now to public hearings.
Yes.
That now takes us to public hearings, non-historic. Next up is 64 Down East Lane LLC, 495 Ox Pasture Road.
I'm gonna be busy. All of these written decisions.
Okay. Introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, Tim Greening, Martin Architects, as I'm sure you're aware.
Or for your-
Yeah.
So we're taking copious notes, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe also Nick Martin should be joining
Okay.
the Zoom. So as an introduction, the last time the team presented for 495 Ox Pasture, we were requested with changing or resolving a few items, those being the sizing and patterning of the glazing over the front entry within the gable form, the the patterning and the glazing in the gable forms, specifically in the punch-outs in the gable forms adjacent to the entry portico, and the amount of fenestration along the east side on the flat portion of the addition on the south facade. And lastly, a general comment of changing the tone of the window framing. Last time we presented a bronze finish. This time we've gone with a Marvin suede, so toned down by a few shades, and again a more balanced feel to overall composition. So striking a balance between the proposed plaster and the proposed pre-finished cedar satin. So to start, in terms of entry gable, what we've done is reduced the size of the glazing overall, but also added muntins and mullions to break up the glass. I think one of the largest things throughout has been the idea and the perception of a commercial feel to the structure and the composition of the fenestration. So we've tried to reduce that by adding in the muntining mullions and changing overall that patterning, bringing the scale down. Additionally, we've added lintels and casing to bring further traditional elements into the overall composition of all facades. We've also reduced the amount of glazing by roughly 15% overall, so the unit sizes have also reduced. In terms of the punch outs on the gable ends where the plaster is on the sides, we've separated those units to even further drive a deviation and a change in the fenestration there and the window units that we have. So again, trying to reduce the perception of that glazing and the composition. We went also from what were 8-foot tall units to 6-foot tall units, particularly for those.
Makes a big difference.
And with respect to that flat roof portion of the connector, as we're on of the addition portion, we have reduced it from not only what was presented as 3 units to only 2, and originally they were divided by 6 units to here just 2 over 2, simplified and refined for the overall composition and really bringing back the reduction and trying to make this have a residential feel to the renovation of the home.
If I may I also add? This is Nick Martin speaking.
Sure.
So thank you for your patience with this application. We've drastically reduced, as Tim is saying, the scale and general scope of the amount of glazing and even the size of the structure. We've reduced the actual square footage as well. There's quite a bit of detailing that's hard to read in this drawing. Tim, could you move to the renderings? There's simplified but important detailing that we've been working on to try to bring in more texture and more color into the project. It's hard to see with the size of the house how much these different elements are moving forward and backwards, and in other words, the push and pull of the gables. There's quite a bit of dimension between the front 2 gables and the L going in the opposite direction there. And the landscaping also has been updated with additional screening both at the street and at the house. So we're hoping these amendments suffice with all of your comments.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That's it
Okay.
for the moment. Would you
Board
like
members.
to see the up close?
I'm sorry,
The
pardon?
material. Do you need to see the materials up close? Or?
Well, actually, what you could do is clarify for me, which the materials and the colors on the 2 gables and the middle on that which you submitted last time, it looked like the protruding gables were some sort of white treatment.
Yeah, it'll be the alabaster that's right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this one, it looks like the reverse. It looks like the receding, the middle part is
Right.
white, and
That could just be an error in the way that it was
That's
rendered
shingles,
out.
right?
Yes. Right, so the shingle is the,
Our goal was to make the general overall feel more textured and warmer.
right.
So I think
I'm
it's just coming
I'm just trying to
across.
find out
Yes.
what
what's
I'm
going
looking
where?
at.
It's
Okay.
So
the two gables
is
on both
this-
sides of the door are
This
the
is
ones
what
with-
you
Right.
just submitted. Is this white or gray as it appears?
It's this whitish, it's the alabaster finish that's here. It's
So you
Benjamin
ren-
Moore
so y-
alabaster.
not to beat you up, but the rendering is wrong.
Yeah, it's differently shaded in order to show the texture, and I think it just came
That's
out
wrong, come on.
incorrectly.
You've
It's
been
wrong.
here
But
It's wrong.
a dozen
the correct
times.
material, it's just the
It's-
shade
okay.
quality.
I think it's the shade quality of that
I don't know
record.
what the hell I'm looking at, to be blunt. Go ahead.
Jane?
The windows look much better, being less than what they were. But I agree, it's very difficult to see the difference from the one to the other, and
Tim, can you move to the other renderings?
No,
Let's not interrupt Jane, please.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jane. Anything else?
You're
Okay.
good.
Okay,
No,
so
you're good.
maybe I'm just the outlier here, but it looks, it's clear to me that the gables on both sides of the doors are the alabaster finish,
Correct.
and the rest of the structure is shingled, or they're using that boarded material
Yes,
that's,
it's shingle, yeah.
got it. So I like the fact that there is some push and pull, as was described, to just change the dimension of the house, change the massing of the house. That the reduction in the size of the windows makes an incredible difference in the way the house presents itself. My only question, and I think we finally, for me, landed on something that I think is different, but more in keeping with the surrounding homes and the style of homes and materials, and by far much nicer than what currently exists there. So I think we have to keep that in mind as well. My only question is the color of the windows. This is the sample here. It still reads pretty dark to me. I wish there was something just, I understand the need to have some distinction and some,
Right.
this just pops a little too much for my,
So the next shade down for that, and especially in Marvin, is effectively the same color as that Cape Cod gray. Right, so you really lose any kind of alteration. So I mean, it was something that we played with, but that is much less deep of that bronze, and we're more in a gray tone than a black, you know.
yeah,
And again,
I'm
in
not
the
gonna
light of day,
die
it's
on
gonna.
that sort. I mean, comparing it to, some of the,
Right.
we actually see samples like this. That's just a far cry from, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to see?
I would actually. I think we've come a long way. I
And it's
think
a-
we're.
It's a matte finish. It's
I
not-
think the reduction in the windows, I think, have made a very big difference. I think we have a house it's a house of its time, but it's now built on classic form, and it's not jarring in its presentation to the neighborhood. That's the way I see it. And I think actually changing the muntening of the windows has made a huge difference. I actually like the juxtaposition of the materials, and I think I hear your point, both of your point. But I think if the color of the windows actually got too close to the color of the house, then they would just sort of disappear.
Yeah,
And I don't know that would actually be good for this house if they just disappeared. So
No,
I
I
actually
agree.
like the juxtaposition of the two. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
But let me go to public
Well,
comment.
let me- just one more thought, and sorry for the outburst before. No, actually, I'm not sorry. You guys ought to know to present what we need to look at, okay?
Understood, yes.
I question, the overall reduction in the fenestration is to be applauded. I just wonder on the right-facing side, which would be the east side, are those almost too small, those windows?
They aren't to me, but.
Me either. No? Okay.
Because I actually think it breaks the rhythm up a little bit.
Yeah.
So they aren't to
Okay.
me.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fine. Jane?
Public comment.
Okay.
Jane?
I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Good, okay.
Public comment. Anyone? Sir? Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Jeffrey Laurie. I've been here before.
Yes, you
I'm
have.
one of the many neighbors living near this proposed house. I think well, I won't speak for all the neighbors, but it's one of those situations where we are all in harmony, and I know the board likes to hear what people think. It's not a matter of this color, this fenestration, this piece of alabaster, that copper window coloring. It's a matter of what belongs in this neighborhood. And we're in a harmony that this house is disharmonious with the neighborhood. It doesn't belong there. It belongs somewhere else. It's east of here, west of here. But this is a very historic neighborhood, and to drop this house into the middle of all of this doesn't do it any favors. The neighborhood, Ox Pasture Road. I think that if the architects went back to the drawing board, and as I said 4 times now, looked at the neighbors, made an attempt to see what the architecture was like, and came up with another home, another facade, another entity, there would be no objection by me or any of the other neighbors. You know, if approving this house is tantamount to going down a really dangerous path, because all the exceptions that you are going to be giving in this kind of structure are going to be looked upon by the next person who's going to come, and it's a never-ending slippery slope. And I urge you to encourage the architects to come up with a building that works in the neighborhood. It doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. My name is Chris Casciano, and I'm the owner of 471 Ox Pasture Road, which is the house immediately to the east of this proposed house at 495 Ox Pasture. I agree completely with Mr. Lurie's comments that the house as designed just doesn't seem harmonious with the neighborhood. I appreciate the incremental changes that have been made to make it better than it used to be, but it certainly still seems to me to reek of a commercial feel, almost, I would say even a step further, almost an industrial feel, as opposed to a residential building that's harmonious and consistent with the other styles in the neighborhood. And so I would urge the board to encourage the architects to make material changes, not just incremental changes, because I just don't think this house belongs or it fits there. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Is that a no?
Yeah, there's one more.
Okay. Hello?
This is Joe McGivern from Toomey Latham, representing Westerly LLC, which is directly across the street from the project, which is owned by Tory Burke. Basically, we're in agreement with the prior 2 commentators who live adjacent to Tory and across the street at a diagonal. This house is simply not in keeping with the neighborhood. It just doesn't it doesn't create a desirable, harmonious character with the historic nature of both sides of the street. It doesn't reference in a meaningful way the houses that line the street. We feel basically that the architects have been charged by the developer with designing something that is modern, and they've made incremental changes to satisfy you, but they haven't taken the gestalt of what a traditional shingle-style Hamptons house is, and this is not it. I know you probably feel like you're arm wrestling with the architects and you're getting worn down, but we hope that you're not so worn down that you can't step back and try to negotiate something that's more traditional and in keeping with the neighborhood and your charge as board members. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. A couple of things. We do take everyone's comments into place. We don't actually get to design our neighbors' houses, but we do get to weigh in on the design, and we're not required to consider it, but we do take it into consideration. The weird thing about Ox Pasture Road is one side of the street is historic and the other side of the street is not. When this project first came in front of us, 9 meetings ago, the house was so completely disharmonious, it was rejected. One of the things it was rejected for is because there was nothing in the house that featured traditional architecture shapes and materials that represented the history of the village, even though this is not an historic side of the street. And as we've moved forward, I feel like we've made progress here. I think the shape of this house, the shapes and the materials do lie within the architectural language of the village of Southampton now. Because it's not in a historic district, we don't actually want to mimic all the houses in the historic district either. Sometimes we like houses to be of their time. Now, they have to be correct with their time, they have to be harmonious in the neighborhood, but I do feel they need to also be houses of their time and not reflective of a past history. In that case here, I actually feel, from where we started, that we've come much closer to that position, in my opinion. Now, I'm only one vote, but that's in my opinion. You know, honestly, we're 3 or 4 meetings into this before our first neighbor comments, so that has put us a little behind on listening to neighbors' comments. But when you consider the house that's there now and how this house sits and the form and shape of this house and the land, I don't find this house disharmonious to the street, to the non-historic side of the street, and I find it to be of its time, but again, I'm just one vote. So you guys want to talk about what your true feelings are, so we sort of understand, because we're either going to go to a vote or they're going to adjourn and come back with more changes. But I think at this point, that's where we're at.
I tend to agree with some of the neighbors that it's not exactly what, sorry. I tend to agree with some of the neighbors that it's not in keeping with Ox Pasture. I know it's come a long way, I know it's changed many times, but I still feel that it does have a bit of a commercial and a bit of a not traditional Southampton home, so that's just where I stand.
Okay.
It is different, but not disharmonious, in my view. There are attributions that have been made in terms of material and fenestration that would be compatible. When as Mark was saying, looking at the existing house, it's essentially the same house. It's, you know, with different fenestration and a slightly different treatment. I dare say the house, I wasn't on the board at the time when that original house was planned, but boy, that was probably a time when maybe somebody should have said something. I think this house is more harmonious than what's there. Would I like the architect to come in with a classic shingled house? Yeah, that's my taste. But but this board isn't charged with dictating taste. It's charged with determining harmony. And harmony is not always a perfect pitch, nor can it be created by someone else. I'm relatively indifferent, but I think I would be hard-pressed to say that it was disharmonious and to disapprove it on that basis.
And I agree with Mark and Jeff. I mean, I think it's not a carbon copy of what's in the neighborhood or in the historic district, nor should it be. But at this point, given the shapes and the structure and the materials, it's not, you know, it's not disharmonious to the surroundings, and by far much improved, you know, version of the existing house. So I'm fine moving forward with this one.
And to be clear, the landscaping plan that's in the file is an integral part of this approval?
It's part of the
That's-
approval, yes.
Okay.
Okay. What would you like us to do?
I think we can take a vote. I'd like to push for a decision, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to be able to move forward.
All right. Then I'm going to move that we approve the application as presented on drawings from July 22nd, appending the landscaping plan for 495 Ox Pasture Road. Do I have a second?
I think it's June,
Second.
wait, June 22nd.
I'm sorry, June 22nd, what did I say?
July.
Oh, sorry, June 22nd. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, there you go. Let me give you your materials back. Look, this one's been a large, arduous road, and I feel like you've listened, and especially from where we started here. I know some of the neighbors won't feel that way, but again, we are in the non-historic part, and on the non-historic side, we have other modern structures on that street. So one we just approved last time. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, so that takes us to 101 Old Town Road, single-family dwelling, gazebo, and solar roof shingles. Is the applicant here? And I hope they're very happy, because we are.
Hi, my name is Maria D'Angelo, and I'm the owner of 101 Old Town Road, and my husband Richard Lev. And Ryan Kessler should be on the Zoom momentarily.
Just to recap for the crowd, this house came in. It had a detached one-car garage. Then it had a detached one-car garage. Then it came back, but the garage was attached again. But we worked with Alex, did a great job of working with the building department, coming up with suggestions to be able to detach the garage again from what I'm seeing. Is that correct? Because that was the one outstanding
Yes,
issue.
I'll leave it up to Ryan to take over.
Good evening, board members. It is correct. With the help of Alex and Ken, we came up with a solution, keep the garage detached as you wish.
Great.
We have gone through multiple iterations at this point. We've taken everything into consideration in terms of materials and everything else, and I hope you like the end product that we come up with.
Okay. Just for the public, can you flash your plans up one more time, just so everyone can see it?
And while Ryan does that, I just wanted to confirm, I did check with chief building inspector that the garage is in a compliant location.
Great, thank you.
Can you see my screen, board members?
I can. If you take us to the elevations, that'd be great.
So we have this whole garage detached.
Yep.
As such. Makes a huge difference.
Yes.
Huge. And I think this is just a killer house now.
Okay.
I hope you guys do too.
Well, you know, we do too, which is why we fought for you and with you, with the building department, to figure out a way to make this work as a detached garage, because it's a much better house. Board members.
No objections.
No objections, much better house, yes.
Joe?
I'm fine.
Yep. There you go.
Fantastic.
And you're happy, because this is
I
what you
am.
actually
Thank you
wanted.
very much.
We
Thank
found a
you
way
for
to
all
get you
your
what you
time.
actually wanted,
Thank
which is
you.
great.
Really
Okay.
appreciate it.
So I'm going to
Thanks.
move.
Public comment?
Public comment?
Here's my
Great. So I'm going to move we accept the application for 101 Old Town Road for single-family dwelling, gazebo, and solar roof shingles. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad I'm so glad. This is one of those, I'm really glad you got the house you wanted.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much, board members. You have a good night now.
Thank you. Next up is 370 Great Plain Roads for construction of a two-story single-family dwelling. What, open the doors?
Can we open them, please?
Yeah, we can try that.
I mean, everyone's getting cranky.
370 Great Plain.
Can you leave those doors open, please, when you leave? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. Leave them open.
Okay, please state your name.
Good evening, board members. My name is Edward Siegel with Edward Siegel Architect. I'm also here with Melissa Dedovich of Peconic Environmental Associates, and zooming in is Hope Rice with Hollander's office. Hope, could you move it to the first floor plan, please? One of the issues we discussed last year was last 2 weeks ago. Just seems like last year.
Yeah.
First floor plan.
It's the sweater, it's throwing people off.
Not the cellar, the first floor plan. Thank you.
Sorry, can we see it now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. We were discussing the garage doors. You suggested that we should increase the width to 9 feet. We have done so. We also made the wall in between the garage doors smaller. Hope, the next drawing, please. And you can see the clouded elevation here, where with the wider garage doors, the smaller wall in between, and we, as discussed, put 2 sconces flanking the 2 doors instead of the 1 sconce in the center.
Of the garage doors.
Of the garage doors.
So much better.
The second issue that we were discussing was whether the chimneys should change from shingle to brick. We issued you a letter, which I don't know if you had the chance to read.
I did.
But we did a short survey around the village and found 7 examples of shingled chimneys. I believe 3 of them are in the historic district. 2 of them I actually designed and appeared before a previous ARB.
They were easier than we were, though. It's like
we still believe that the shingle chimneys are appropriate for this house, not only aesthetically, but we also would love to discuss technical reasons why we prefer them. Number 1, brick chimneys commonly cause roof staining due to efflorescence. I'm sorry to bring that up, but now you will be going around the city looking at all the white stainage that comes down from chimneys all over Southampton. And truthfully, our clients hate this. It's one of the reasons why we typically go towards shingles chimneys. Water infiltration problems typically occur where masonry meets shingles, whether it's on the roof or on the wall. It's always an issue because you're marrying 2 different materials and you're flashing on the outside, so it creates water infiltration problems. In order to avoid leaks and what we call roof acne, we typically divert all typical roof penetrations like plumbing vents and bathroom exhausts through our shingled chimneys. It's one of the signatures of what we do. We like beautiful, simple roofs without penetrations as much as possible. Hence, we feel that shingled chimneys on shingle roofs and walls are preferred both aesthetically and technically. And we hope you agree. Please go to the next. You see the updated rendering with the new garage doors.
Okay. Board members?
I'm fine with the shingled chimney. And thank you for updating the garage doors. They look much better. And I think the house looks fine, much improvement of what was there.
I agree. I think it's a handsome house. Yep.
Okay. I'm not a fan of the chimneys, but I seem to be a minority. I think the change of the garage door is much improved. I have a question about the front door, because it wasn't as obvious in the last renderings, but they're rendering darker. You have a hanging light and 2 side lights in the entrance.
Yes,
That's a lot of light in the entrance.
that was a request of the client.
Still looks like a lot of light in the entrance. I know.
On the material
Well,
board, yeah.
I know, but in the renderings that we got dated April, or whatever ones I was looking at, the light fixtures didn't render as dark as they do in this picture, so they seem to pop in this rendering where they didn't last time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that bothers anybody
No,
else.
I think it's a good point, because Ed made such a compelling argument for the simplicity of the shingled chimneys, which aesthetically I'm not a big fan of, but to the extent that it gives you a cleaner roof line without the PVC pipes and aluminum pipes going through the roof, I agree with you. So on that, using your same rationale, having 3 lights over the front door, as much as your client would like that, it's overkill and contrary to the simplicity that you otherwise designed. So maybe you could choose either 1 light overhead or 2 on the side, but not 3.
I think we choose the 2 on the side.
I think that's a good choice.
Would that,
Yeah, 'cause
I agree, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because either that or a soffit light, but yeah, the 3 is too many. All right, members of the public? All right, so,
And Ed's the architect, so he can.
yeah, you can mark the drawing and remove that center light fixture.
Will do.
Okay, so I'm going to move that where's my,
Let's see, do you need the file for that, Jackie, or do you?
Yeah, we should do it with the file copy,
Yeah.
okay,
since it's not
Oh,
a
you want
written
me to get it
decision.
for you?
okay.
It's, what the heck was it?
And if you would just also update that drawing and send us an updated drawing as well.
It's 370 Great Plains, you
Yeah.
got it,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, I move to accept the application for 370 Great Plains Road for construction of a 2-story single-family house with the hand addition to remove the center light fixture over the front door. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
1 opposed.
I'm sorry.
Okay. 1 opposed, me.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Next up, we have 30 Pulaski Street for construction of a 2-story house with an attached garage.
Maybe the 5 on this, or?
Our expert will come get them from you.
Thank you, Hope.
Thank you. State your name, please. Right there into the microphone.
My
There you
name
go.
is Yulio. I'm the architect for 30 Pulaski.
Okay,
Good evening. We were here last time and board made several comments.
Yep.
And we believe we addressed it all.
I'm gonna ask you not to walk away from the microphone so people can hear you.
I'm gonna explain. This is was submitted last time, and the front door was like too narrow and doesn't have significance. And we decided to make it wider and with lights on the top. And I think board member also suggested, I think there are several suggestions. One is side lights, one is make it wider. We tried the side lights, and because it's not very wide, when we add the side lights, we can only add 1, so it's a little bit lopsided. So this is what we tried. And I think it doesn't look as good as to make it wider. So we made it wider, and then you can see it's the same proportion at the window, like almost the same proportion at the window. Instead of this is skinny, this door is like a skinnier than the proportion of the window, and that one is like more robust. And also we have lights on the top, and this is a very typical front door design for a small village house. And
Sage,
then
are you able to get that on the screen? What she's showing? Great, thanks. It's as hard to see it on the screen as it is on paper. Okay. Thanks, Sage.
Because
Okay.
last time you said you prefer paper, so this time I didn't bring my computer,
that-
otherwise I can bring it out
That's
of the
okay.
computer.
That's okay.
And then the other comment is the garage door, the lights on the top and the panels on the bottom are not harmonious. So I changed it. So the garage door has 4 panels on the bottom, and then their corresponding lights on the top. So instead of this is not lining up as well, the original one. So now it's more streamlined and lined up. And that's the front. And I did bring the sample of the Hardy, the copperstone. I did bring it, and that trim, white trim. And I think together looks pretty good.
For the file, could you tell me the color of the white?
The white is trim, like
I know, but what white? Is it Benjamin Moore 01 white? Is it, what's the paint color?
we can use simply white.
So, okay, it was simply white.
Yeah, simply
Okay.
white.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the rear elevation, the board member made comments about this overhang and the porch, the columns are not centered, and we actually got rid of the door and got rid of the overhang, so that is very clean, and that provides background for Rose Harbor or trees and stuff. And the porch looks very symmetrical now, 2 columns on each side. And for the sliding doors, the homeowner did make a minor request, and she really liked it that doesn't have bars. And we know the board requested because it's recessed in the porch, and there's only one neighbor in the back, and we talked to the neighbor, and they don't mind it. So I did draw the 2 options, but the homeowner really would like it with no bars, because it's really if you can see the doors are recessed here, and this is the porch, and we will have screening along the property line, and there's only one neighbor who might see this. So that's just a tiny request.
Board members?
I think the plan looks fine. I think the change to the front door made a difference. And I actually, in this case, given the location of the doors and how visible they actually are, I could go up with the no grill version on the sliders.
Thank you.
Jane?
Yeah, I would agree, much improved from what it was, and I think everything looks fine. I'm okay with the doors.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm with Jane.
Okay, thanks.
This is going to be a really weird, very specific comment. But you don't have frieze board consistency around the house. If you look at your front elevation, do you see where the windows that hang from the frieze board to the right of the front door and both the first and second story, the width is different, especially if you look at the second story, the windows actually fall below the rake of the second frieze board in the second story. But if you go to the side of the house, the windows actually meet or above that same frieze line. And if I go to the back of the house, they go up another 2 inches into the frieze line. So it's just one of those weird things, as you go around the house, it doesn't have consistency. You see what I'm saying? Do you want me to show you? Because the drawings are a lot of coming around.
Okay.
If you look at these, where you've got the frieze coming in, the windows meet, they actually, the top of the windows fall actually below the frieze line. If I come here to this floor, they're now equal to the frieze line, or this frieze board is actually deeper, I believe, than what you've got here. Now if I go to the back, the windows actually raise up and into the frieze board, which is again an inconsistent difference. So I feel like as I go around the house, it's a small minor detail, but like in dressmaking details, what you don't have is consistency around the house.
I'll be more careful next time.
What, was it intentional, or now that Mark points it out, I see what he's saying.
No, it's not intentional, it's a drafting problem.
So here's where I think we are. I think you have approval from everybody they like the house. I told you it's a really specific detail, but it's actually, what I'd like you to do is, I think we can approve this house, or we'll go to public comment here, but it would be pending receipt of drawings, updated drawings, where you found consistency in the frieze boards around the house.
No problem.
That would give you a chance to update them or bring drawings in
Yeah, I will.
before I sign off on them,
Yeah.
but at least would help us move forward,
Okay.
which I know you'd appreciate.
Yeah.
But do I have any public comment?
Nope. he's shaking his
All
head.
right, so in that case, I'm going to move that we accept the application for 30 Pulaski Street pending receipt of updating drawings with consistent frieze board window lines around the house. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you. If you just want to ping me and let me know when they're there, then because I come in the building department tomorrow and on Thursday. So when they're ready. Okay, great. And as soon as I have them, then when I get the file, as soon as you get them in, I'll go to the file and make sure, so. Okay, so try not to slow you down.
Good catch, by the way.
Okay. That brings us to 49 Breeze Lane, construction of a 2-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage and accessory pool house. Are they coming in, Sage? Or are they here? Is there any hands raised? Okay. Coming in? Hello?
All right, here I am. Sorry about that.
Hello, state your name, please.
My name is Bruce Siska. I'm the architect for 49 Breeze Lane in Southampton. We're coming back to you this evening after the last meeting with a couple comments that you guys had that we have addressed and hopefully changed to your liking. I can run you through those if you like.
That would be great.
They were elevation changes, some aesthetic changes, as well as some detail changes.
Great.
So I am looking at, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is our front elevation, the east elevation. This is the elevation that faces the street. A couple of comments we had previously were changing the roof material on the upper roof between the two gable ends from a standing seam metal roof to cedar shingles. So we took care of that. Another comment was some of the detailing in the upper gable roofs, meaning originally I had diamond shaped shingles in the upper gables and also some floral detailing. That was all removed as well. I think that cleaned it up quite a bit. One of the major changes was changing the roof pitches or the roof sweeps. I had originally both the dormer and common roof. I had a sweeps in there. Those were removed. So now they're just sort of straight, a little bit more elegant, I think. I think you guys talked about the front door as well. So that got changed out from a full glass light door to a half glass, half solid door with divider lights up on the glass part. And I also simplified the front covered porch. Originally I had 5 columns. I've reduced that down to just 3. I think you guys also may have had a comment on the centering of the garage door. The garage door right now is centered on the center line of the gable ridge. That's the way it was when we presented this to you at the last meeting, so I just wanted to make note of that. Let's see, can I go to the back? Okay, so this is the back of the house. The west elevation faces the backyard. One of the comments from last meeting was the 2 glass doors that are facing the backyard, 2 large glass doors on the center of the house and on the right side. We've added button bars to those. On the left side of the house, we have the covered screen porch. We removed the access to that second floor roof deck. So the door on the left side was removed and was replaced with a window that matches window number 211, which is on the right side gable end. So those 2 gables match now. We did keep the handrail just for aesthetic purposes only. I think. I did put a note on the drawings, basically the elevations, calling out all the exterior light fixtures. So we do have 2 wall sconces on these back sliding doors. A wall sconce on the two wall sconces on the front, flanking the garage door, and we are doing recessed lighting in the covered porch. So there'll be no wall sconces flanking the front door. I think that pretty much covers it. There was a few comments when I flip over to the site plan on our perimeter plantings, our perimeter screening. We changed that out from the arborvitae or green giants down to just privet.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that will go along both side yards and also the rear yard. There was a comment on the 2 existing large trees on the property. I did speak with the owner, and we are going to work with keeping those as well. And I think that is it. I think that covers everything.
Okay, board members.
Just a few things on the, and thank you for the changes you've made. I think it makes a dramatic difference to the house, the design. But on the east elevation, the window over at the entrance door just seems to be oversized and out of proportion with the rest of the house. I think if you remove the side lights from both sides of that window, I think it would make all the difference. make it much more in proportion to the other windows. On the rear facade, the same thing for that window over in the center. I would like to see the handrail removed from that one side of that one gable. I think it actually obstructs the view from the window. I think we would probably see a more traditional finishing of that type of situation. So I would remove the handrail. Also, on the first floor, the window-to-wall ratio to me is still way out of whack. I think it's a lot of light coming off a house on a very small lot with not much distance between your house and those surrounding it. So I think that needs to be mitigated. Needs to be mitigated. That's it. That's it.
Could you just clarify that, the window wall ratio?
Yeah, on the first floor, between
On west or east? Which
on the
elevation?
the west elevation. Sorry, the rear of the house.
Okay.
Jeff?
All right. So let's.
Let us all, we're going to give you all our comments so we can address them all
You're
at
not
once.
quite sure what I'm talking about? If you look at the west elevation,
Yeah.
look at the first floor.
Okay.
See all the sliders and the windows on the entire the entire length of the first floor? That's too much.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's a scaling problem, to be honest with you. John? Jeff?
Okay. Yeah, so let's go to the front or the east elevation in the front. And so I agree with John. The scale of the center windows over the doors are overpowering and therefore give the house more mass than I think it otherwise would be appropriate and harmonious to that neighborhood. So I think John's recommendation to have just the single window and eliminate the two sides on the left and the right would be to your advantage. What's the material being used on the roof?
The upper roof or the lower roof?
Well, I'm actually going to suggest that they both be cedar. So is your answer different than that?
Yes. So the upper
Okay.
roof, we
All right.
changed
So
that-
anyway, you know what? I'll comment, and then this way you can respond. So and I appreciate that, Bruce. Thanks. So I think you have an opportunity to make the house cute because it's a design that lends itself to a cedar shingled roof, and I think that would make it handsome. And I think I would suggest carrying that through to the first floor roof. There are some examples on neighboring Halsey Street where people have done that, cedar shingle and a lower roof of cedar shingle, and it looks very nice. I think the seam steel would be disharmonious to the other houses in the neighborhood. I know the centering of the garage doors is an issue. You know, perhaps landscaping to the right-facing side to the north might mitigate that. But I don't know, I look forward to other board members commenting on that. Then on the west elevation, which is the rear, so here again, you have 3 sets of windows on the upper floor. I think you would do well by reducing that, eliminating the left and the right facing windows and just keeping the center one. Then as far as the glass, I agree with John that the window to wall ratio is off. It's too much glass. Now, what defines too much glass? The Village of Ridgefield doesn't specify it, but other municipalities do. One that I'm aware of says no more than 50% glass on any one side. So if you want to use that as a measure, this has, especially if you add in the screened-in porch windows, it's almost 90% glass or open. The other, so, you know, if that gives you a frame of reference. Then on the north elevation, as I look at the deck, and think about other applications that we've heard. In fact, some on properties to which I'm a neighbor, the board, either before I was on it or afterwards, has denied second floor decks of this nature on such small properties. If you want a decorative railing on that, fine, but I would like to see it not as a functional deck. I
Well,
don't-
it's not, it's.
Oh,
it-
did
it's-
you already
it-
do
it-
that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Now,
never-
remove the door.
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just think the rail looks out of place because there,
okay.
it isn't, it's not a balcony.
Well, never mind, but, okay, great, well, thank you very much. Okay, thanks, Bruce. Jane, over to you.
I would agree with both Jeff and John about the window over the front door is too wide, and if you eliminated the side windows on either side, it would make much of a difference. And again, the second floor window on the back, I would think that that is overkill. And absolutely, the window wall ratio for the bottom floor on the west elevation is overkill, and that would definitely, in my mind, need to be greatly reduced. I would also agree, remove the railing. I don't see what, if it's not a deck, what function it has as far as being decorative. I don't think it's adding anything to the structure.
There's, but one other thing, I assume you'll have to come back with updated plans. Can we see the next version without the screen over that enclosed portion so we know what's behind it? On the west elevation?
Yeah, I can see
First
that.
floor? Okay.
Okay, I have some questions. When I look at the two, let's go to the east elevation. When you've got it, a north and south gable facing me, but on the left side, the gable that's on the left side overhangs the house by, it looks like about a foot, overhangs the house on the right, but on the right side, it doesn't. So, because it's inconsistent floor to floor, it makes it look like the top of the house isn't centered over the bottom of the house.
Because it's not.
Good eye.
And I think that's one of the things that's throwing me off here. And then when the shingle comes down or the whatever the material is, I guess is that Burrell, whatever it is, when the board comes down inside those gables and hits the roof line, what is that roof? That's just solid white right now.
The solid white, that's where the roof actually splays out to accept the front.
That doesn't look properly resolved to me. What is the material, though? Because I can see where you're proposing standing seam.
As cedar shingles.
Okay, so we'd need to see that, see what it looks like as cedar shingle, because right now it just looks unresolved. It looks like you come down to a white nothing, but we don't actually know that that's roof. So the next time we'd like to see that. But I think it's because either the way the front porch finishes, you finish outside the gable on the right and inside the gable on the left. It just makes the house look like the top and the bottom are not in sync with one another. And it may be the porch width, I'm not sure, but it looks like you have an overhang on the left-hand side that you don't have on the right-hand side.
It's just that the north side of the garage pushes out, so I could get a little storage space in the garage.
Right.
And that roof wraps around and ties back into the gambrel end.
Yes, but it ties around on one side but not the other, right? I feel that's making the house look out of balance to itself to the left and the right. So you might have to consider just taking a little of the garage arc so when I look at it, it finishes symmetrically, because I think it doesn't look, it's not quite asymmetrical enough to look purposeful. It's just not symmetrical enough to look like accidental. I think the changes you made to the front porch with the column, et cetera, are really great. I think if we go to the west elevation, here's what I think the problem are with your screen doors. They're just scaled too big. You have no breadth between the top of the door and the bottom of the soffit. So I think if you scale them in, both of them in, about 20%, and also the one that's in the center of the house is snugged up against the side of the house. There's no breadth there for the door to finish before the house begins. So I think if you bring them in and down just a little bit, they're going to read more as windows versus right now they almost look like store display windows, and I think that will help you. And also, if you're going to do it this way, because you see where you've got the two attached light fixtures to the sliding door to the right, but they're snugged up against the door. They frame the door, but you don't have one on the left. So if you're going to go in that direction, even with the smallers, those should be centered to where it looks like those light fixtures have relationship to both sets of doors. And I think the solution for your problem, you have no freeze board on the second floor from which that window is falling, or if you do, it's very narrow. So one suggestion might be to bring that window down just 10 or 15% in size, just to cottage it up just a little bit. I think it'll feel more sophisticated. And the question about the rail you've heard, I think the issue with the rail is you're actually blocking the view to the backyard from the room there for no good purpose. So I think if you lose that, that'll just make it a slightly more interesting house. And I'm sorry, but that was a lot of comments.
No, actually,
It's a good pickup
you
there.
brought up the east elevation, which I think is, now that I understand there's going to be shingled on the shingles in the area of that overhang that's not standing seam roof, it seems like a lot of different materials happening in that little span between the siding and the gables and then the shingles and then the.
Yeah, here's a suggestion.
It's all cedar shingle, there's not.
No, it's not. You've got standing seam, and I'm guessing you want to use standing seam because you don't have the pitch necessary for shingle because you're probably less than 12. What you're less than 8 pitch? What pitch are you there?
We're right around a 4 and 12.
Yeah, that's going to
Right
say. So that's why you've got this. And maybe the answer is to rethink your roof across where your standing seam meets the bottom of the. Just go straight up instead of these wraparounds and meets the bottom of the gables.
Right.
Because right now the resolution there just looks, very architectural term, wonky. It's just not really working.
So the gables are shingled then?
Yeah.
Everything's shingled.
Oh, okay.
Well,
No, the gables are clapboard, aren't they?
I thought they were clapboard as well.
So on the roof, sorry.
No, it's rendered.
Well, you're rendering
the way the
does-
rendering is, it looks like clapboard, which makes it even more confusing. Okay.
So to be clear and accurate, not every roof is shingled. This is standing.
This is
steel.
standing seam across here because
Right.
he doesn't have the pitch.
And you're building a house from scratch. So you can design the pitch, you can design the overhang, any way you want. And so I think Mark has made a good point of saying that the way you've designed it currently to accommodate some additional functionality of space in the garage, you've made an asymmetrical, thank you, structure. And then, in my view, it's not like you're dealing with a house that already has a limitation
You're
on
not
the pitch.
retrofitting anything.
These are, you're designing it. So design something with a pitch that works for shingles.
All right, so that's a
But
lot
I
of
can't tell
feedback.
you how to design the house.
Do we have any questions? Do we have any comments from the public? All right, so that's a lot of feedback. I'm assuming you're asking us for an adjournment so you can come back on July the 10th?
Absolutely.
All right, my friend, I know it's a lot of feedback, but at the end of the day, the differences to the house will just bring it all together into a really lovely structure because you've made such great strides already. These are smaller details that will make that final set of difference for your house. So I'm going to move that we accept the applicant's request for adjournment at 30 Pulaski Street. Do I have a second?
Oh, this is,
49
I'm sorry,
Breeze.
I'm which? I'm sorry, I'm 49 Breeze Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
I blame the Okay.
Yeah. You can
Dumb,
take
dis-
it, Bob.
dumb, no, because now I'm this little sweat monster.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so that brings us to 100 Narrow Lane. Welcome to New Home LLC. Welcome back.
That air conditioner doesn't work. Or they, too loud.
Okay, so you will please introduce yourself at the microphone, then take us through what
Good
the
evening,
comments were
Mayor
last
on
time.
Studio B&M.
And then take us through the comments for what last time and what changes you've made. Thank you. Okay?
What was the
Yeah.
question again?
What I was asking you is to introduce yourself, then take us through the changes that were made
Sure.
from the last time we looked at the house.
You have the new drawings of you.
Yes, sir.
This one's the next piece of the
Great, thank you.
old ones, new ones.
And one second, Jackie, you got name and spelling? Okay, great, thank you.
Right, after last meeting, we made 3 major changes.
Okay.
One was to raise the house to a conventional foundation to add the steps to the front door. I don't know if the board members are familiar with the system. Prior to session, we had a system like this where the house was sunken in the foundation.
Yep.
Now it's a conventional way of doing it, which is 2 feet above the ground. So that was one change. The other change that we made, which to me was major, we got rid of 12 windows. 6 in the front, 6 in the back, and half of the remaining windows were reduced in size. I'm gonna start with the back. I think the one comment was that there are too many sliding doors in the back. These two were 16 feet, we changed them to 12. And you notice 4 windows changed to 3. These 4 large windows were reduced to 3 windows to mimic the front. These 3 windows were rearranged to line up with these gables, and that required slight modification to the second floor. These 2 windows were reduced to 2.
And why do you have those gables? They weren't on the last plan, were they?
They were not there before, no.
Right.
We explored different options, dormers, gables, and I have one option that I will share with you, but this one seems
But I guess my question is, why do you have them? Are they decorative, or is there a roof
for
line?
decorative reasons. Yeah, there
Okay.
was too much roof.
Okay.
We agreed. There was too much roof in the
Okay.
back. If you looked at the
But they don't actually serve a function, they're just
They're
decorative.
not functional. They're
Okay.
frameables, yes.
Okay.
Coming back to the front, so when we got rid of the 3 windows, converted them to 2, we ended up with a lot of wall space. So we introduced shutters only on these 2 main gables. The 2 windows in here were reduced to 1, and the squares you see under the windows, which looks white in the drawings, those are panels. The windows were eliminated. The 4 big windows, which I kind of agreed with you last meeting over the plantings, are reduced to 3 smaller windows, and they sort of line up with the ones in the rear. And the same thing on the gable on the left-hand side. So in total, we lost about 25% of the glass.
You did?
In this house, yep. By adding the panels, reducing the sliding doors, getting rid of the windows and all of that. Again, I'm gonna remind you, the house is only 26 feet wide, so it was very challenging to get all these rooms to work, especially the second floor. What else do I have? We modified the floor plan, which has something to do with the board, I guess, right? We
Yeah.
modified the floor plan to
Yeah.
accommodate the new windows on the second floor only. Shutters we added frieze and corbel. We added a little more traditional items. The house was a little too simple, we mentioned it the last time. We changed the hip on this one to a full gable in a smaller size, which now corresponds to the other gables in terms of scale.
Okay.
That's basically it. I mean,
Okay. Board members?
I appreciate the changes you made. The reduction in the window-to-wall ratio has a dramatic impact on the house.
Thank you.
And I think for me, the west elevation looks fine. I did have issue with the front door being off-center from that area, but
Again,
but looking at
explain that to you.
looking at the rendering, I actually like it because it's recessed
great.
and it's, I mean, oh, actually, yeah, it's recessed, and that's a perfect spot for a bench or something.
John,
Anyway,
the problem was because of the depth of the house, we couldn't run the stairs straight up.
yeah, I think
So we
it,
had to run them horizontal, east-west, and that kind of pushed the door to the side.
yeah, I'm agreeing with you, so I think that's fine. My only comment
Yes.
on the east elevation are those dormers in the middle of the roof that you said serve as like an ornamental type
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
I wonder
Yes, sir.
if a shed dormer might be more
I
appropriate,
think just lose them.
or just lose them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking a shed dormer you could actually put the small windows in to provide lighting if you
Yeah.
opened up the ceiling. but I'm not designing your house. I'm just saying that I think currently they're out of place. I'd like to see a different, either they're eliminated or a different solution.
John, this is one last option that we did over the weekend. This is again ornamental.
I like that better than what you have here.
Great.
I mean, I think it provides more symmetry with
This is the rear.
the structure.
Okay.
And it's not floating in the roof, it's actually part of the roof line, or the.
Yeah.
It is. It's mimicked from
Yeah.
the front.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back, okay.
It could be
Right now, let's talk
functional,
about what's
but
been
we don't know
presented.
that yet.
Okay, hang on, let's talk about what's been presented first. Jane?
Definitely a huge improvement by reducing the windows 25%. I don't mind the door off-center. I do still think this is an awful lot of, these are all sliding glass doors. 1,
Yes,
2,
there was
3,
three in the
4,
rear.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 doors?
There was one 12-foot slider and two 16-footers. We made them all 12-footers.
But how many doors are there?
3.
The two center panels move, and then
The center
Right,
panels are
right.
the moving
Yeah.
portion.
This was 12, this was 16 and 16. We changed them to 12 all.
So there's just 3 doors there now?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Each one is one unit though.
That's what was confusing me.
They're
Okay.
not windows, but each one is a sliding door.
Okay, I definitely like your last rendition of the roof line better than the two.
This one,
Yeah, yes,
the weekend project.
yeah. I think that,
Okay.
we're calling that now the
I
weekend
can
project.
present that to the board and make
Okay.
it part of the
Okay,
documents.
let's get all comments.
Okay, I would basically be reiterating what Jane and John have said. And I was content with the roof line without the ornamentation. And I can't really comment on that because that's not what's been presented, but.
Okay. So here are my comments. Let's start with the west elevation. I think in the rule of like, before you go out the door, take one thing off, suddenly we've added, corbels have suddenly appeared under the gables that weren't there in the last edition. And I don't know that they're necessary. I think where you've got the panels, I think the panels are nice. I think it's very odd that you have one window without a panel. So I think either gang those together and put a panel under all 3.
Which one is it?
In this, here, that you've got panel, whoops, panel. I just think we're gonna do that. There's a consistency there. I just think
There
that,
was a reason for that.
is there a floor plan reason for it?
Actually, no, there is no reason for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dining room and
Yeah.
having,
More light's better?
actually client wanted more windows. He was
Yeah.
not happy with reducing it, but I'm here to satisfy the board.
Yeah. Well, let me,
We could add a panel there.
you could.
We could.
You know, since we're gonna look at this one more time, here's my suggestion, just a question for you. When I look at the panels that are on the second floor, what are the height of those?
Sorry, what was the question?
You've got a window that has panels on the second floor here. Do you know what the height of those
That
panels
is
are?
a closet.
Okay, but what's the height of the panel?
Oh, the height, 5 feet in total, 3 feet and 2 feet nominal.
So this is a 2-foot panel.
Correct,
With
correct.
and this is what, a 3-foot panel or 2.5-foot panel?
Bottom one is about 2.5 feet. They're,
Okay,
the top windows are all 5 feet in height.
Right.
The bottom windows are 8, so we
Okay.
try to have
well,
spacing.
I think what I'm seeing is that having the one non-paneled window in the middle of it is just,
That does look
it's
a
a
little
little architecturally jarring. So either think about making them all panels, or making the panels on the first floor actually smaller and making the window of it bigger, to match the panel size of the second floor. That one open one I think is a little odd.
Okay.
Those are my only comments about the front. I think the front door looks fine. I think the windows looks fine. And when we get to the back, I think reducing the windows has made a great difference. The 2 odd non-functioning tops in the roof line, the dormers, and the roof line. Would you pass, in the interest of time for you, if you just pass that to me, let's take a look at it for a second, because these are sort of a non-starter, but let's give you some direction how we feel. Board members, how do you feel?
Well, it surely has more, this this surely has more character than either the plain
Yeah.
roof or the
Yeah.
falsified roof.
Yeah, and it also defines that there's a roof line difference
Yeah.
between the
Everything
north
is
and
a
south side of the house,
difference, so
yeah.
it brings the roof
So-
together.
so it actually is.
Board's
oh, go
decision,
ahead.
don't mean to interrupt. I
Yeah.
personally would get rid of these and go with that, but
Okay.
that's your
All right.
decision.
And-
All right.
And do you think the corbels in this case are just a nice touch of ornamentation to a fairly straightforward design?
Well, they just sort of appeared.
Yeah.
It's not the be-all end all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's not the be-all end all for me. I was just surprised they
So
appeared.
let me build on a couple of things. So I think in this case, because it's so simple, that they add a little bit of character to it in the same way the back
Okay.
does. On the panels, this is sort of a question of Mark. Where they have the
2/2.
the 2/2, that seems symmetrical and that seems to work. I think it gets wonky, or whatever term you want to use, when you have panels like that. I'm just fine with regular windows there, three windows.
I think 3 windows would be fine.
Yeah.
I gotta approach the bench.
You're approaching the bench. Night court.
So-
Right here. Jeff is saying these two, he'd be
Yeah,
better
just
off
make
with these.
those Just make regular them windows.
Just make them
Either
windows.
that, or I would be willing to make this a panel. I'll leave that up to the
Okay.
board.
All
I
right.
personally would go with 4 windows.
I
Go
agree.
with
Three windows
go with the
is
windows.
better.
What's
Three
odd
windows.
is having 1 window and 2 panels.
Right.
That's what's the odd part. So just go with, that's your dining room, go with windows you'd like the light. Okay. Um,
Let that be light.
And then, I think what you're hearing is that we actually have a preference for your weekend project roof line.
And this.
Yep,
these become the-
and those coming that way. And any other changes that we're recommending here? Jane, are you okay with the windows in the back?
Yes.
Okay. John, anything I'm missing?
No, that's it.
Okay. I think those, if you want, I think those are the changes we'll be looking for. Okay?
And we said we're okay with the corbels, if
Yeah.
that's.
The only thing, for me, they look, for some reason, the dimensions of it look more like rafter tails than corbels to me, so just think about
Oh.
looking at the width and the dimension of them.
These panels are 12 by-
No, the corbels that are, or are they, I don't know if the corbels are rafter tails, what,
3 inches by 8 inches high.
okay. Because they look, I don't know, just to me, the
We
dimensions of them,
actually
so,
have
yeah.
a model number for those. They're not
Okay.
noted here, but
Okay. So do I have any public comment? Okay, so I think you hear what we need. So I hear you asking for an adjournment, so you can bring us, come back in 2 weeks.
What I can do is, if the board members agree, I can make these changes, approve them based on these changes, and bring new documents and not.
Nah, I'm gonna like you to come back on July 10th, and then we can finish this out, okay? So I hear you asking for adjournment to July 10th? Okay, so I move we accept the applicant's request for adjournment to July 10th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, next up, we have 89 Halsey Street for construction of a 2-story single-family, and do you have the affidavits and are they in order?
Yes.
And are you impressed that I remembered to ask? State your name, please.
My name is Pete D. Pasquale. I'm the architect for the project.
Hello, Pete Di Pasquale.
Since we submitted, we've created some renderings to help illustrate the character of the proposal from the neighborhood and the street.
Okay.
Thanks. Oh, my. Okay.
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay. All right. If you just want to actually take us through elevation by elevation, we don't need to look at the interior, just the elevations.
Sure.
And then anything you want to say about landscaping.
Sure.
ahead.
Thanks for letting me do that. So I've worked in the village with different versions of the board on both historic and non-historic houses, in the historic district and not. The last one was a historic preservation project on Cooper's Neck Lane. This is quite different because Halsey Street has quite a variety of styles, roof lines, exterior materials, number of floors for houses. So what we tried to identify and what we really wanted to hang on to as far as being contextual to the neighborhood was plantings, being consistent with the hedge line that one sees from 101 Halsey down to 73 Halsey. I think the existing trees on Halsey Street are the defining characteristic of the house. And then we also looked at the proportions very carefully. I just want to note first that in terms of zoning, the proposal is compliant with all zoning. It's as of right, no variances. And we met with Tim to verify all that. The house is set back 60 feet from the street, similar to the row of houses to the south of it. The one to the north is 10 feet or less from the street, so it's quite different.
I'm going to move you along to talk about the elevations of the house. If all the setbacks and things weren't correct, you wouldn't be here.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Sure. So for us, we looked at the proportion of the massing in the house, of the house to be sympathetic with the farm-like houses to the south. There is a variety when you go down even 4 or 5 houses. When you go across the street, there are gambrel-shaped roofs. But this is meant to be sympathetic with the farmhouse directly to the south and to the house that was there. So the 2-story narrow reading at the front and the porch are interpretive of those structures that it's adjacent to. As we go elevation by elevation, we also wanted to look at and continue to use natural materials, which are, about 50% of the houses on Halsey Street are unpainted. And so here what we wanted to create was a subtle sense of variety, just as we see with shingles or a different material, but in an authentic, new way, appropriate to making a house today. So we have limestone panels at the first and second story. At the first story, they are smooth. At the second story, they are scored to give a sense of relief, texture, and variety to the massing. There's a teak entry porch, which is meant to weather and be consistent in tone with other houses on the street. And there are teak surrounds to the windows, also meant to weather to create a similar tone. There is and that's the approach for the massing and approach to materials.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Board members?
Well, we haven't gone through the elevations.
No, but go ahead.
Okay. I have looked at the elevations, so I'll spare you. So, I'm sorry. Oh, Pete. So, Pete, you've worked in the village.
Yeah.
Right. So you probably are aware of the village code, I would hope.
Sure.
Okay. So, Chapter 11633, and forgive me, board members, for feeling the need to repeat this, but I want to make sure that, in fact, you fully comprehend what's before this board. So the board is charged with the duty of exercising sound judgment and of rejecting plans in which, in its opinion, are not of harmonious character because of proposed style, is 1, materials, 2, mass, line, color, detail, placement or placement upon the property or in relation to the spaces between buildings, or the natural character of landscape because the plans do not provide for location and design structures and open spaces and so on and balance harmonious. Pete, I want to be perfectly frank with you. You check about every box to give this board full justification in full judgment without being arbitrary to deny this application. So, so on character, you said there are a variety of houses. A couple of these board members live on Halsey Street. Yes, there's a variety, but there's not a single contemporary house up and down the entire street. There may be variations of shingled houses, but practically every house there is shingled. Plus, the houses in many cases date back to well over 100 years. So you reference farmhouses. That's actually what those houses were in many cases. The house that you tore down, which was fine, that was approved. I wish it would have stayed, but it was beyond salvation. At least that's what some people felt. You reference massing. That house was a early 20th century Victorian style house with verticality.
I'm gonna move you along.
Okay, I'm going to
Comment on
move
this
you.
house.
Okay. On this house, you're presenting something that is flat, contemporary glass. It is disharmonious to the naked eye, to the unschooled eye, in every way, shape, or form. You speak about materials, limestone, teak. Those are not consistent and not harmonious with anything in the neighborhood. You speak about trying to be true to the landscaping. Let me remind you that you clear-cut the entire lot, and you planted arborvitaes, a non-indigenous species, around the entire lot. Put up stockade fence. Okay, nothing in that. Now, whether that was legal or not, you did it, but the things that you're saying just don't hold true, Pete. So that's why I felt the need to reiterate the code. So materials, mass, maybe only in terms of volume and the location in terms of frontage, but in terms of line, color, detail, placement in terms of the natural character, this house is the antithesis of that street.
Okay. Jane?
I would agree. It is quite surprising that this would be something proposed for Halsey Street.
John?
No, I would agree that this doesn't even come close to anything that is in character with Halsey Street. I have issue with the materials, the color, the plate glass on both the front and the rear, which, aside from everything else, creates light pollution and privacy issues. And the wraparound terrace on the second floor, you obviously have not paid attention to any of these meetings that have happened over the past 2 years.
Well, that's absolutely why there's a solid rail, and to minimize, to be respectful of the privacy of the owner and the neighbors.
Did you sit through the meeting tonight? We had 495 Ox Pasture Road.
I
Were you
was
here for
here,
that?
but I can't say I remember exactly.
Okay, so 9 meetings ago,
Yep.
they came to
Oh,
us
yeah,
with
they
the
do.
very,
Yep.
yes. We're in the same thing here. There's not another flat top contemporary house roof. It does not sits harmonious with its neighbors. From its colors and materials are not appropriate for the street, and it's not that it's not harmonious, in fact disharmonious for the neighborhood. Therefore, I'm going to tell you is what I told them is start over. There's literally nothing about this house. It's a beautiful house for somewhere else.
Yeah,
There's literally nothing about it that's appropriate for that part of Halsey Street and that part of Southampton Village. So instead of going through rounds of what I think my answer to you would be, start over. And we also have reams of letters from neighbors and that I'm not even going to read in tonight because we don't need to, because this is not anywhere near anything, because its massing and its scale are so inappropriate for the neighborhood. It's just not going to work.
There are
So-
precedents for flat roof properties in the neighborhood, and at the end of Halsey, where it meets Prospect Street.
Okay,
there's
so
a
so
house-
let me be clear. That is on White Street.
Yeah,
And
you
I'm
don't-
sorry,
you
that's
don't-
on Prospect Street. It borders on the railroad.
Okay,
There's
I'm
a
not,
sh-
you know what, I'm
yeah.
moving on. I'm not even going to attempt a conversation trying to
Thank you.
justify why this house
Yeah.
fits into the neighborhood, because you have 4 people and 20 letters, or a lot of letters here, telling us that it doesn't. So I think we'd be doing a disservice to the neighbors. Well, I'm just doing a disservice to you if I don't tell you the truth, which is this house will never work, so start over. And I'm doing a disservice to the neighbors if I've ever even considered to entertain it. So I think that's how we're feeling. Okay? Do I have any comments from the public? Okay.
I was gonna move for an adjournment so that we could argue
Oh,
against it.
I'm sorry, sir,
Go
can
ahead
you,
and decide.
can you please come up and introduce yourself? Because we can't have comments from the public where people aren't identifying themselves on the record.
Robert Price.
Go with the microphone,
Hey.
please. Yeah.
Want me over here?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Robert Price, 101 Halsey Street, to the house to the north. So you did refer to that, but the landscaping on my yard compared to this doesn't even compare. There's nothing that compares. The house, you guys used harmonious how many times tonight? There's nothing harmonious, not even close. This house would fit right in on Surfside Drive in Bridgehampton. You wouldn't have to do anything, it's perfect, but not on Halsey Street. Sorry, you guys.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name's Paul Hunt. I have a house at 71 Halsey Street that backs onto this property. If you know Halsey Street, this thing just doesn't work. And I agree with you completely. I was gonna ask for an adjournment, but you're ready to go. Go make the decision.
We'd actually like to take an adjournment, please.
Well, Okay, do I have any more comments from the public? That's not our process, but do I have any more comments from the public? Besides thumbs up, and I like the thumbs up, but.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure if there were renderings submitted that they make it into the file. There were not renderings.
Jackie got him.
Great, thank you.
Hi.
Introduce yourself,
Karen
please.
Price, 100 Halsey Street.
Okay.
I guess what I want to, you guys have all said enough, but in the last 7 years, 66, 72, 108, 114, and 128 have all been raised. And something unique has been put there, but it's been unique to the neighborhood.
Right.
So.
There are forms that are consistent.
Yeah, I mean,
with
they're
street.
different. The
Yeah.
108, it's kind of got this cookie cutter confusing roof, but at least it's got a roof.
Okay. So we hear you.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
And there's a lot of history on that street.
Yes, there is.
Not as much
any
as it
other,
used to
Any
be,
other
but-
comments online? Okay, so I think you very clearly hear the comments about this house. So you're requesting an adjournment?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Also, I would hesitate for the use of arborvitae on street-facing portions of the property. I think it creates a horrible, uninviting wall of green, a wall, essentially, that it's ruining neighborhoods in this village.
And dying and some, but, okay, so I'm gonna move, we accept the applicant's request for an adjournment for 89 Halsey Street to,
Till the next available meeting.
okay, well, the next meeting will be July 10th.
Okay. And
So
if we
we'll
need
adjourn you to
postpone
July
from there,
10th, and if
we
you
will.
need to, we can push it from there.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so all
Can
of,
we get a notice that that he'll be on the next?
yes, you can look, you won't be noticed now.
But-
But
So the agenda is posted online
the
at
agenda
least
is posted
72
online at
hours before
ARB.
the meeting.
And there's also, when you go there, there's a place on the agenda that you can click through to the documents that you can click through online and take a look at them online.
So
Sure.
assume that it's on for the 10th, and unless there's an adjournment.
And when you go, it's called a Dropbox, and there's a code in there for Dropbox that Alex takes care of very well. That puts all them that you can take a look at. Sure.
And we would need all submissions by the 6th at noon.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the last thing on our agenda for tonight is the work session for, to review the construction protocol for 765 Hill Street. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to explain it one more time, because I've read it now. So we just have to agree to the order in which things are submitted and then in the order in which they're approved.
Yeah, because I believe that one of the I'm sorry, can you just take the chat outside, please? We're still going here. So I believe that one of the considerations when this construction was approved was that there was perhaps some detailing missing. And it was not what was being proposed, but mostly how it was going to be done. So the board had incorporated a condition of approval that there needed to be an approved construction protocol with sufficient detail as to how this construction was going to be done on this important historic asset.
Right.
So I think the board just needs to determine if it's sufficient
Okay.
and if there needs to be more detail on it.
To prevent any loss of.
To any loss of historic material in history.
And I'm sorry I didn't mention this before, but you might want to consider having Zach look at it.
I actually would like to have Zach look at it, because what's important to me is two things. That there's actually a detailed list, asset list of what's of current condition. and then a detailed list of what's being restored, what's being replaced, how and when and where, and because we are moving it, the location comes into play. So, I think actually sending it to Zach is probably the right thing to do.
Okay.
Although I will hold 1 minute and say, I may talk to see if Sarah would be willing to look at it.
It might have initially been raised by Sarah.
It was, and that's why
I think she
I'm-
had a
She
significant
did,
concern.
and given her history as a historian, I
a good
actually think
idea.
she might be the right person, so I'm going to talk to one of those two people.
Okay.
Okay? All right. With that, I'm gonna move that we close the June 26th meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.